Welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. How's everybody doing tonight? Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to check this out, even though you missed the best part, the live party. Don't worry, you will still very much enjoy this, but make sure you are here every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe button and ring that bell, and you will never, ever, ever miss another Indian Jesus live party again. I also want to give a big thank you to the sponsor of the stream, my6shirt.com. Whatever your persuasion, they've got something for you. And of course, it is the only place to get your very own The Indian Jesus official merch. Only at my6shirt.com. All right. Let's party. Oh, I forgot my candle here. Gotta make sure we're setting the vibe, right? Got a nice floral scent here. Ready to go? Welcome. How is everybody doing? So, we've been talking a lot about Patrick Bet-David lately, and we're not going to stop. One of my favorite people in the world was on the podcast either today or yesterday, and a lot of the PBD podcast episodes are going to be somewhat similar. They're going to be in the same realm of talking about the stuff that PBD knows and, stuff like that. But Michael Malice is a whole different kind of story. So Michael Malice is an anarchist. And, hey, we got Dustin Offner in the building. Welcome to the party. Exactly. Great stand-up dude and one of the best, the absolute best trolls. He had me blocked on Twitter for a while. I don't know why, but I just seen him again, so I guess he unblocked me. I don't know what I did or didn't do, but very excited to get into this. So yes, he is a self-described anarchist and speaks highly of that mentality, and even goes into some stuff that I really didn't understand too much about anarchism. And without further ado, let's dive right in. If you cannot hear the video, guys, please do let me know.
So we got a special guest here.
Oh, too fast. Hold on. Struggle streaming.
All the way from Buffalo, New York, who got 9.5 hours of sleep last night. He just wrote a book called Why You Don't Need More Than 4 Hours of Sleep. Guys, be ready. Michael Malice is bringing in today. I think we should have probably recorded 3 minutes before us going to the podcast. Literally, Tom was about to have his first fist fight, and it was going to be pretty intense. Him and Michael going at it, but it's going to be friendly. Michael,
like to see
it's good to have you on the podcast.
Wait. The anarchist side of the room in here.
Russians don't use fists; we use knives. So there was not going to.
That's yes. What do Canadians use, Tom?
Or they use
apologies.
Or they use. No, not the Quebec.
I'm sorry.
That's a boomer laugh if I ever heard one. That
Canadians don't apologize, just the Quebecois, which are sort of like recycled French.
Anyways, this is what happens when you have a guy that comes on a podcast. It takes half a second. He describes himself as an anarchist. Is that correct? Michael Malice.
That is how I describe myself.
Yes. Without adjectives.
Yes.
He has a book that just came out a couple months ago, The White Pill, A Tale of Good and Evil.
Yeah.
Michael Malice, the man, the myth, the legend, in the flesh today.
Let's do it.
I'm doing great, relatively, yes.
Yeah, relatively. So tell us your sleep pattern. You said you became an author. I think the audience wants to know what is the...
So I had several reasons to become an author, none of which are particularly because I like writing books or I was particularly good at it, but I had a list of things I wanted to visualize and accomplish in my life. Never have to talk to someone I don't want to. Work for myself, have a legacy, and also sleep in when I go my natural sleep pattern. So
I love all three of them.
I wake up at 11, and I've been doing this for years. So whenever that's kind of messed up, I am just low-key angry.
Michael, you literally go to...
Hey, we got Monza in the building. What is good? Welcome to the party. Said Michael Malice and Yaron Brook have a good conversation on Lex Friedman about anarchy and why it cannot work. Well, I didn't see that conversation. So given that you did, I'm very interested to see what you'll have to say against what Malice has to say. Because PBD does bring a decent amount of pushback, but he's just not very familiar with what anarchy is. I don't think a lot of people are, at least in the sense of how Michael Malice uses it. So I'm going to be looking for you, brother.
To sleep at 2 a.m. and you wake up at 11
every day, Monday through Sunday. It's
so
great.
So when we said podcast 9 to 11, you thought it was late night.
Oh, no. I didn't think that at all. You said, come do the show. And I said, sure. Then you're like, oh, it's 11. So you did a bait and switch on me.
Yeah.
You never have a morning meeting in your life.
Michael sends me a message.
I used to do Glenn Beck's show in the morning, and that was hell on earth.
I'll say one thing.
I'm completely with him. I remember when I was in college, I was working at a Panera. And so I would have to do the opening shift. It was 5:45 a.m. And then I would have the, work a full shift, and then I would have class all the way until my 8:45 p.m. Class, and it would go on for another an hour and a half. It was hell. I didn't have to do it every single day, so at least I would get to sleep in the next day. But like, it was hell.
Back your schedule is the exact opposite of what I was looking for in my life, because I used to work in nightlife in Miami,
right?
And I was sick of waking up at noon every single day. I would go to bed at 4 or 5 in the morning, a little later than you, and wake up at noon, and I was like, I got to get my life together.
But this is my biorhythm.
Hey, listen,
that's exactly it. I had to realize that, just like him, trying to get myself on a schedule of waking up at 6 a.m. and going to bed at 8 or 9 p.m., like, that's not ever going to happen for me. And so similarly, a lot of the jobs I went into, working in the food industry, being a dog trainer, being a streamer, were things that I could, if not set my own hours, certainly didn't have to wake up before noon.
What's the point of being successful if you can't set your own terms?
Michael, those are your
What's the point of being successful if you can't set your own terms? I love it.
The audience wants to know, what are your pronouns? That's it. That's also...
Sir.
Okay, I got you.
Oh, come on.
And if you can somehow convince Pat to get on your schedule, you are a great salesman.
She should be on his schedule.
Yeah.
It might not work for him.
You should take advantage of the whole pronoun thing. Just make your pronouns tired and shut up.
I'm not tired. I'm just kind of.
That's a pattern, Tom.
Yeah.
2 to 11.
Man sleep,
What's wrong with that?
You know what's crazy? So yesterday, while we're talking about this, I do the executive physical that I do every couple of years. You go in at 6:30 in the morning, time you wake up. and they literally take you from doctor to doctor to doctor, and they test everything, right? They check your heart, your skin, your breathing, your
what is
everything
going on?
Phenomenal. You see 9 or 10 doctors in the span of 9 hours. Okay. And the lady asked me a question. She says, so how much sleep do you get per night? And I felt compelled.
Like, what? You trying to join me?
To sell her my sleep pattern. I said, listen, I just want to let you know, that Aura ring thing that people wear. So yeah, so I wore it for like 6 months. And it's not how much sleep you get, it's how much deep sleep you get. Because according to Aura, I get a lot of deep sleep. And she says, really? I said, yes. She says, you still need to figure out a way to sleep 7 hours a night, because I'm doing 4 to 6, whatever the time is for me. And I said, look, it works for some, it doesn't work for some, but it is what it is. And I think that's what it is. Some people are, the whole morning person, night person. Mm-hmm. I think there is some truth behind that.
No,
certain people are night.
If you're awake in the morning, you're not a person. There's something wrong with you. But
early bird is not getting the worm in your house.
No, getting a shotgun. But
roosters.
But the thing is, I think extremely successful people often are the ones whose evolutionary advantage is they get by in 4 hours of sleep. Like Clinton had 4 hours of sleep. Thatcher famously had 4 hours of sleep, and they could just get by.
You're getting 9 hours.
Well, I'm getting 9, so I'm a failure.
Yeah.
I'm like modern.
Joe Biden's getting 12 to 15 we hear.
Sleep.
Hey, we got Indie Film in the building. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well, sir. Welcome to the party. Are you familiar with Michael Malice? You are going to enjoy this one if you're not.
Well, if there's anything you're not as a failure, people love listening to your opinions,
but maybe
people thinking.
But maybe they're failures.
Yeah, well, that's a perspective to have, right? Yeah. You're failing, I'm winning. I'm Michael Malice, right? I'm the white pill guy. Anyways, okay, so for the audience that doesn't know you, Michael, we did a podcast together. Yes. It was a Zoom. It was the first time we had an interaction together. And I was trying to learn about you. A lot of people kept saying, Pat, you got to talk to this guy. You got to talk to this guy. We had a great conversation.
I enjoyed it. Yeah, that's why I'm here and awake.
Yeah. And he messages me, he says,
that's why I'm awake.
I thought we had a good conversation. I'm like, Michael, we had a very good conversation. We were trying to get on the podcast. So our booker, when you and we were trying to get it time to get on the podcast, they're like, hey, Michael, not right now, maybe later. And then anyways, we eventually made it work.
Wait, that's not what happened at all. So he said, do you want to do the show? I said, yes. I don't hear from him. I check in, and then he goes, they're not interested. It wasn't later. It was like, it's a no.
But the guy's name is who? Who was
Alan something.
Alan. That's not our booker.
Right.
That's our booker.
What?
Well, he also texted my sister somehow.
Yeah.
So did I, by the way, but that was a separate.
Well, that had nothing to do with
Well,
us. It's just Alan wants to date
she
sister.
doesn't-
He's looking for you.
She likes her sleep also in different ways.
I was that a subtle? She
How was
likes
that?
her sleep.
How is that subtle? There's like, listen, you want subtle? I'll do it 11 p.m.
Michael, give us your background. So how does one like you
They don't. No one likes me.
become who you are today with your ideas?
He's so funny. He's so quick. He's so quick. Did you miss it? I almost missed it. Listen again.
There's one like you.
You want subtle? I'll do it 11 p.m.
Michael, give us your background. So how does one like you?
They don't. No one likes.
How does one like you? They don't. Nobody likes me. That's great. This is
become who you are today with your ideas. Tell us some
Where
of
do you
your
get your
ideas.
ideas from? I don't. What do you mean? What do you mean by that question?
Exactly what I asked you. Like, how did you come up with the ideas that you have today? Was it?
Well, I didn't come up with them per se.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my ideas, being an anarchist, are historically, I did something called the Anarchist Handbook, which we discussed. It was a collection of the tradition of anarchism, and this tagline for the book is "The black flag comes in many colors," because there are different schools of anarchism. But basically, anarchism is the understanding that political authority is illegitimate, and you do not speak for me, and everything else is just application.
So when you're
so that's a little bit, obviously I can't read this out loud, but a little bit different than what Mansa is saying. And so we'll, you know what, let's star this. And every time he brings up something about, because, this is a pretty strong, pretty strong accusation of all anarchists. So let's just see how well it holds up over the course of the conversation.
you're saying anarchists, we've interviewed libertarians, Democrats, Republicans, progressives. For me, this is my first anarchist.
Well, Dave Smith's been on. He's a very failed anarchist.
Yeah, he's more. Shout
out to Dave.
Yeah, so do I, but he's a very failed anarchist.
He's your most frequent guest, I think you said.
Yeah, when we did the lockdowns, we did crossovers.
I think he's a stud. But
okay.
Right. He'll kick your ass. Bro.
I know there's the line.
Okay?
I am
relax, Malice.
Listen, I know there's that line about you got to wake up pretty in the morning, but to convince me that Dave Smith's a stud, you really got to wake me up early in the morning.
Dave gets 6 hours of sleep. Dave's a 6-hour guy. In his mind, that's a stud. And by the way, you're talking to a guy that also respects people who get proper, ample amount of sleep.
Okay.
So he's part of the Ariana.
Oh my
Huffington
God,
camp.
how much are we going to talk about
Sleepy Dave?
Sleepy Dave. Well, anyway, so you're unique. So for I guess part of Pat's questioning is,
I know unique.
You're a nice guy.
I'm nice.
So for you, you're probably like, I'm an anarchist. It's like I roll out of bed.
Oh, our poll's gotten to 50-50. If you haven't hit the poll, let me know.
At noon, it's what I do. I'm an anarchist. But for the most of the people in the audience, probably not too familiar with what the substantive beliefs of anarchy are. When I hear anarchy, I'm like, this guy's a wild man. You seem pretty, nice guy. So explain what anarchy is and why people should maybe consider that for their ideology.
Well, I remember when I was in college, I was taking a bioethics course, and there was this kind of chart that spanned the range of what the bioethics range of ideas were. And in one part of the chart was legalism, which is basically the idea that what the government defines as moral is moral. And the other half is that antinomianism, which is the belief that morals are independent of the law. And the author went on to say, well, since no one believes in antinomianism, it's somewhere else in this chart. Well, that is the belief in antinomianism, that something is not moral simply because it's legal, and something is not immoral simply because it's legal, that morality precedes law, and that politicians or anyone else who tries to assume authority have to be held accountable to a higher power, but also the belief that government, democracy, all these things are inherently illegitimate and can never be made valid or coherent even.
So basically, he's coming from the place that morality precedes legality. That's his starting point. That's all he's said so far, is that for something to be moral, whether it is legal or illegal is irrelevant. Moral things are moral and legal things are legal, and never the twain shall meet. No, so, they are not mutually exclusive. Right? Am I using that right? Yeah.
So you're saying there's a difference between morality and legality?
Yes, and I don't think that's a particularly controversial perspective in that aspect of anarchism.
And then how do you define morality? And who's the authority on morality? Is it the Bible? Is it God? Is it Jesus? Is it Muhammad? Where do you come up with morality? Is it human?
Muhammad. That's what that.
That's it.
No,
that's where it is.
No,
as a Jew.
As a Jew, yes, it's Muhammad. I mean, I really bet on the wrong bank on this one. No, morality is something Ayn Rand talks about very frequently, and this again is independent of anarchism. Morality is something that we all have to deal with. We have no choice. We all have to face moral issues on a daily basis. We may not tend to think of them as moral, like, okay, am I going to go to the school to check up on how my kid's doing, or am I going to spend time at business, or am I going to be with my mistress? These are all moral questions, even though they may not be framed, but maybe the last one most certainly would be. So the point being that morality and our conscience is something that is inescapable, and there are very many mechanisms promulgated by the corporate press to try to make things seem morally ambiguous or seem morally incorrect. And this is just one of the other many reasons why I and so many other people, not specifically anarchists, have so much contempt for corporate journalists.
Again, so far, not saying anything I disagree with. Now, I'm not completely unfamiliar with Michael Malice himself, but I've never really heard him. Like I didn't see the podcast that Monza was bringing up. I've seen him on Joe Rogan, but they kind of, they're more. That's more of like one of the friend podcasts than one of the intellectual podcasts. And they do get into stuff, but it is more about the two of them rather than like what does Michael Malice think. So this is the first time I'm really hearing him delve into what is it that he believes in general, and so far I'm with him.
By the way, I just searched what is anarchy, right? Anarcho-pacifism, okay,
God, yeah.
is a form of anarchism which completely rejects the use of violence.
Yeah.
Okay, but now you're saying it's a form of anarchism. So if you want to determine what anarchism is, then getting a form of anarchism, yeah, you know what I mean. That doesn't help you.
Any form for any purpose. The main precedent was Henry David Thoreau,
Yes.
who through his work, Civil Disobedience, influenced both Leo Tolstoy and Mahatma Gandhi's advocacy of nonviolent resistance.
Yeah.
Right. So I think when you and I talked last time, I said, would that be possible today in America? You were pretty confident that it wouldn't be hard to get there. So if we wanted to, if you had it your way, let's just say today, Michael Malice wins 2024 election on 9 hours of sleep.
How,
Right?
how am I running? How am I running for office?
I know you're not, but let's just say if you are, okay,
Dream big.
and you're
Dream big.
able to do certain policies that you would like to implement in U.S., what would some of those policies be?
You mean like what kind of guillotines?
There you go. That's one.
French Revolution vibes?
Who goes first?
I don't. Okay.
Great question.
This is what
Pat.
happens when you wake
This is a good question.
me up early.
Great
Who goes
question.
first?
This is what happens.
Who's
when
on
you
the
wake up
topic
early.
left?
The
Like-
mascot's dropping, and it's like, all right, because I do have a list. No, I do not believe.
The list.
I'm not even really kidding. I don't believe that someone can ethically be a politician and serve. But to answer your question in a different way, no,
Facts.
I'm not a pacifist. And the only policies I would be interested in doing is to,
Get rid of the
destroy as
government.
many swaths of government as
Yep.
possible, and to have consequences for government officials as much as possible for their depravity.
So get rid of. So if you don't, then the government runs without having any politicians, and the people are managing themselves with the laws and the guidelines and the rules. All of that. That's kind of how
It's not necessarily managing themselves. For example, if I go to like a department store, right, there's a system of governance in place. I can no shirts, no shoes, no services, something like that. There's some store will have you can return things. Some stores have you can't return things. So basically, you would have this kind of localized, very localized, very decentralized sense of governance, because this is kind of myth that anarchism is the idea of no rules, but that's not accurate at all. If I go to your house, if you're having a white party and I got to wear white, it's certainly within your rights to say you're not wearing white, get the F out of my house. So it is, it is inescapable that someone is going to have jurisdiction over certain areas. The point being, to have someone insinuate themselves as the state in between these relationships is illegitimate.
So the interjection of that third party is what he's talking about. So the way that I've heard it is that anarchy is not no rules, it's no rulers. So I'm gonna read this comment and then end the poll. So if you haven't hit the poll, hit the poll. Monza says Malice is cool, but without government to remove force from our everyday lives, who is to say that an army won't form and start to run society in a very bad way? Well, that kind of sounds like what's already happening.
How does that look like? So you're saying it would be self-regulated, like we would self-regulate.
We do that now. Again, I'm here. I came at your time. I am doing your podcast. I can't just do whatever I want. I'm following certain principles. And then if I don't, at a certain point, you can either tell me to leave, or if it gets extreme, you call security. So this is something that not only is not hypothetical, it's something we live 24/7, 365 days a year. And anarchism is, voluntary cooperation and exchange is the basis of any healthy society.
That part I agree with. Even when we talk about capitalism, it's based on the idea of free exchange without any intermediary. And so I definitely agree with Monza here that it cannot hold up. If there is a society where they say it's all right, no other society should invade them to stop them from doing it. Oh, that was an earlier comment. I don't know what. But yeah, basically the idea that rules exist. We have the a hierarchy. We have a structure of things that we do that just like socially enforced. And I agree with that. Scaling that up probably is not going to work, but more because of the people and not because of the ideology. So again, this brings us back to the point of having an ideal to work towards, so that we understand, what a perfect world would be like, knowing that we could never quite get there. That's what I'm getting from it this so far. Hey, we got David Banner in the building. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Says, as bad as any federal government can be, I don't believe that small government is the solution to any of our problems. What? For example, look at all the people that got effed by the cops that have to take their chances in the Supreme Court, so that in the future others don't have to face the same mistreatment. Look at all the people that get screwed by the cops that have to take their chances in the Supreme Court. I don't understand. I'm not sure how that's connected. I don't know how often are police brutality cases being brought to the Supreme Court. I don't even know that. But I think we're looking, way far down the road. And obviously, if everybody's just doing whatever they want, then that doesn't seem like it's manageable. But he didn't get here for no reason. So let's deal with the conversation as it's happening, and let's deal with what he's saying as he's saying it. Because I'm not here saying yay anarchism. I'm saying, hey, look, Michael Malice is on the Valuetainment podcast. Let's check it out. Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. How are you doing? Glad to see you, brother. This is limited power to the government is what we need. The only role of the government should be to protect our rights. See, that's where I stand right now. The idea is, okay, is this conversation going to change my mind or anybody else's? Monson goes on to say, everything else can be privatized, but we need a general rule of law to follow. Again, this is, I think, the point that Malice would disagree with. And this podcast is him laying out that case.
And the problems only come through public crime, governments, or private crime, criminals.
So if that's the case, we're right now, what country today is running on that system?
So anarchism isn't a location. Anarchism is a relationship. So
okay, that's a claim. Anarchism, why can't I say that word? Anarchism isn't a location, it's a relationship. So that's again, some of you probably know a lot more about anarchism than I do. That's fine. We are dealing with this conversation, so we just want to stay with that. Okay, the claim is it's not a location; it's about a relationship. If you want to talk about that, and we definitely got to go to Discord. I absolutely cannot talk about that on YouTube.
So anytime you have two people or two organizations or two entities or more where they have no semblance of authority higher than them, that is an anarchist relationship. And let me give you a good example. We don't have a world government, right? So if an American, I apologize for this, and if an American kills a Canadian in Mexico, who has jurisdiction? No one. But they still have some mechanism in place between the three of them because every country is in a state of anarchism toward every other country.
Okay, makes sense.
So anarchism, again, isn't like a place. It's a relationship between different entities.
So I don't like the framing of it that it's not a place. Liberalism isn't a place. Socialism isn't a place either. It's an ideology. What the question was is, where is the place that this ideology is being enacted?
How does that work in interpersonal relationships? So let's say with a husband and wife or
a
business partner.
Husband's in charge.
That's it. Bottom line. It's the best answer I'm going to hear all day.
That's what Muhammad was right.
Yeah. Okay. So
it almost sounds like you sound like a pastor. It's like, you got to have a relationship with God. It's what it is. It's not Christianity is not a religion. It's a relationship with God. Muslim is not. It's a relationship. It's a relationship. But at the same time, if you say anarchy, so if because the way you sound super convincing. Okay.
Ooh.
And you're obviously very sharp guy.
Okay.
Your history stuff. You guys coming up to you helping out with writing.
Drinking soda. That's always a red flag. It is 2023. If you're still drinking soda, I don't know what you're doing.
You do such a good job that they thank you, but they say, please, let's make sure we don't have to say that you did this because of your background and what you believe in. You're a very sharp guy with your background. You've been on Rogan. I don't know how many times you've been on Rogan.
It's either 8 or 6.
Okay, that's a lot of times to be on Rogan.
How do you not know the number?
He pulled 2 episodes because we had the N-word.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Jesus.
6. Got it.
Talk about anarchy. Relax.
Well, but okay, so but you sound convincing. If it's that convincing, Michael, why aren't more people doing it? Is it the argument? I'll
tell you. I can answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's an essay in the Anarchist Handbook by Emma Goldman, and she gets into why the majority cannot reason.
Okay, so this is again, this is very well framed. If you sound very convincing, if this is all what you're selling it to be, why aren't people enacting it?
So the vast majority of people are not capable of rational discourse, particularly when it comes to politics. So
Facts.
any kind of, and democracy exploits this. First of all, they don't often have time, but second, they often don't have the mental capacity. But again, it's the popularity of an idea is not at all a testament to its veracity or lack of veracity. If that were true, then the funniest show in history would be how the Big Bang Theory, which of course I don't think anyone will say with a straight face is the case, but that's the most popular sitcom that's either now or has ever been.
Ridiculous.
So there's several reasons. One is why it's not more popular. People in power, especially those who are in power illegitimately, have an enormous vested interest and enormous incentive to maintain their power and to increase their power. And for over a century now, the state has been raising America's children as its own, taking them since now they want it younger and younger, and inculcating them with ideas that if you receive them for the first time as an adult, you would regard as absurd. But since you've been kind of trained to accept them as plausible since you're 4 or 5 years old, you don't even bat an eye when they're repeated to you as an adult, such as.
Does anybody disagree with that? Does anybody disagree with how they're indoctrinating children with, whatever the liberal orthodoxy is at the time? Right now happens to be that gender isn't real.
As the idea that we all understand here in this room, maybe it's different for the Canadian, that aristocracy is illegitimate, right? Just someone was born to some king, and now this guy's going to some queen, and now this person's going to have some kind of position to dictate terms of your life, take money from you. This is crazy. But somehow, if there's a lot of your neighbors believe something, that they now as a group have the power to take your freedoms away, that is regarded as sanity. It's in the anarchist perspective, it's completely insane.
So he's bringing up the case of how other people around you and what they believe and what they think is going to affect what you see as normal, not even what what it is that you think, which will also happen, but specifically how you determine what is normal and what is not normal. For us, the idea of having a king is what he was just saying, is that you were just born into this place where you have power that none of us have. That doesn't make sense. And I think what he's getting to is that this idea that democracy, as it stands, works, is something that, just like in monarchistic countries, they accept that. We accept the democratic republic structure, I think.
What was the first anarchy community? What was the first anarchy community?
I don't know what you would consider.
Guys, real quick, can I just get 2 more likes? It's so quick right there. Just bam. Thank you.
The first anarchist
I'm
community.
just Googling it right now, and I put anarchy, and it says list of anarchist communities.
So-
Wikipedia. So which one would be meaning? Because you said it's not a country, it's a relationship, right? That's what you said.
But
It's a
again, so
relation-
these little communities are very much kind of in the anarcho-communist way, and they often didn't last very long.
Yeah, I guess so. But the idea of anarchy, what was the first inception of the idea of anarchy? What year was that?
Again, the year 5000 BC. Anarchism, again, is a relationship. So whenever you have people interacting with each other without any kind of sovereign or ruler over them, that is an example of anarchism working. It's not a place and it's not a time.
So again, this is, a little bit of a red flag to me, because this is not the first time that he's had conversations about anarchy. This is not the first time he's talked to somebody who is not familiar with the ideology behind the word. It's very clear that what PBD is asking is, okay, where did this idea start as an idea? Obviously, the idea that we don't need rulers existed before we even had language, because we didn't have rulers before we had language. That's not the point. What he's asking is, where did this ideology that you are following, that you call yourself an anarchist, following this ideology, where did you get that? Where did it start to be an ideology, a cohesive ideology? And he's just not giving that answer. So, I mean, again, if you don't know, just be like, well, I don't really know where it started. There's a lot of different this, that, whatever. But it seems like he's purposely dodging the question. Hey, we got Harley Rose, our resident fact checker in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome to the party. So glad to see you. We are talking with anarchist Michael Malice on PBD.
So an example would be two friends.
Okay, here we go.
Right.
No,
I'll give you some examples. Okay, ready? Here's some examples. Stop Googling, listen. 'Cause
I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read this to you, and
How
then
about
you
I
give me
answer
the
your
idea.
question?
Anarchy is a society without a government. Okay. It may also.
I don't care what the computer says.
I'm just because for me, it's for smart guys like you don't need it. I'm trying to get I'm not there yet.
But I don't think Wikipedia.
Do you see what do you see what PBD did just there? He's trying to get an answer, and Michael Malice is not answering the question the way that he wants it answered. And it's a justifiable question. It's not a ridiculous question. It's not a loaded question. It's not a gotcha question. It's just what is it that you're dealing with, and or what is it that we're dealing with here? And Malice was like, stop Googling and just listen to me. And he's like, well, maybe you're so smart and you get this, but for dumb people like me, how do you argue against that? How do you argue against that? Hey, we got JR in the building. Welcome to the party. Not just coming in, dropping the $2 super chat. No question, no comment, just pure love of the game. Thank you so much. And of course, Morty gets a treat with every single super chat. Welcome and thank you, JR. Welcome. Thank you so much, brother. Hey, we got Ian Undercover in the building. Welcome to the party. How are you doing? Glad to see ya. Mazza says it started day one, talking about anarchism. Started day one of the human race, and we eventually formed a government to stop the lawlessness of an unruly society. Well, that would be a better answer than anything that Malice has said. I mean, whether you agree or disagree with the fact that anarchy is a good thing, this is an answer to the question that PBD is asking. So far, I guess you're the better anarchist.
I know. Let me just read this,
Okay.
Michael.
Okay.
So anarchy is a society without a government. It may also refer to a society or group of people that entirely rejects a set hierarchy. Okay. Anarchy was first used in English dictionary in 1539. An absence of government. That's kind of what I was wanting to know. Like, when did it get started? So 1539, the idea came about like first time used in a dictionary. Pierre Joseph Proudhon adopted anarchy and anarchists in its 1840 treatise, What is Property? And then it goes into explaining the rest of it. But go ahead. You were going to say something about anarchy with a relationship of friends.
Just
Thank you again to JR, sponsor of the stream. As always, the highest donation is the sponsor of the stream, and you get denoted right there in the banner. Thank you again, JR.
Because the word was used for the first time in a certain year does not mean the concept or the philosophy was original to that year.
Okay, just because the word was used in the first time doesn't mean, at a certain point, doesn't mean that the philosophy started then. But that's what he was asking you. When is the first time the word was used? He didn't ask you when was the first time anarchy existed.
I'll give examples of anarchism working. Music, cuisine, mathematics, astronomy. These are all anarchist systems, meaning there's no sovereign, there's no government regulating it. These are individuals and organizations working together voluntarily and creating systems. Those are all examples of working anarchist systems.
So go deep.
But the question becomes, can that be can those philosophies, so for you, if anarchy is a relationship and it's used in those different sects, then what would be an ideal situation for you for there to not be a government?
Well, I know about ideal because I think when you start getting into ideals, it starts becoming a little bit incoherent. But yeah.
So that is an interesting point as well, that he doesn't want to deal in ideals because it gets incoherent. So he's not talking about some unrealistic ideal that he wants to get as close to as possible. He wants this really to happen.
Yes, not necessarily not be a government, but the understanding that the government is inherently illegitimate. And frankly, a lot of what the government does, and I'm sorry I have my back to you, by the way, a lot of what the government does is a function of so many people being trained to regard it as legitimate and basically bend the knee when they don't otherwise have to.
Interesting. You were going to say, go ahead with the music.
Yeah.
Okay. So the examples we're using on the music side, if you can elaborate.
I think part of the reason that Pat's Googling stuff and I'm asking these questions is because we generally don't know about this kind of stuff. So for you, you're like, I talk about this every single day. Come on.
No, I'm saying that Wikipedia is often a very incoherent and poor resource when you're dealing with.
Fair enough. But I mean, it gives us a
Right. But if you're not answering the questions, what else would you like them to do, sir?
good baseline for what's going on.
I think it's a bad. That's my point. If you're starting,
You
with
are a true anarchist, bro.
I'm not a true
I
anarchist. I just don't regard Wikipedia as really a coherent resource
All good.
when it comes to most things. I don't think it's a controversial opinion.
Okay, so why don't we go a little bit more modern? While Tom's got a question for him, can you, Rob? Maybe this is at his standard. And before we go into ChatGPT and what anarchy is, let us go to our sponsor, Goldco. Okay, with all the mess going on right now in the economy.
That's why it's such a great.
What is Goldco that I've known so like what is / maybe that's at Michael standards, because Wikipedia is obviously questionable by everybody.
Okay, you're right. Yeah.
What is what anarchy? Yeah, exactly. Did you question it already or no?
Hey, indie film, no question, no comment, just pure love of the game. Thank you so much. Morty knows it. Oh, wait, let me pull this down so you can see it. Oh, yummy. He says, thank you, indie film.
Is it currently down?
Capacity, but I may be able to try it over here.
Yeah, you keep doing what you're doing. When you get it, let us know.
You had one job.
Yeah,
Rob
can't even get on ChatGPT.
Rob,
Sounds like complete anarchy. What's going on in ChatGPT?
Rob's had a rough couple of weeks, even though I know he's doing his best. But go ahead.
So a
ChatGPT was down yesterday.
question for you.
Yeah.
Every now and then, whether it's missionaries or anthropologists, discover small groups of people, indigenous people, that have hitherto been not discovered. And observation is they have some very basic mores and folkways, and they've just sort of assembled among themselves. Would you call that anarchist groups?
No, because they always, if I want to say almost always, because I'm not an anthropologist, but they do have a very rigid legal and hierarchical structure. There's a chieftain, and there are laws that are enforced.
And so
Definitely agree with this, Matzo.
even though absent influence of any of the government structures, or
But they do have a government structure. They have a judicial system. It's just primitive, right? They're gonna
can I
have
finish?
Sure.
Okay. So they're absent any of like, oh, you live in Luxembourg and there's the king or whatever. They've been absent that. There hasn't been an outside influence on them like that. They've just grown inside. But because they've grown a hierarchical structure, maybe it's patriarchal, whatever it is, that is their government, and therefore that's not an anarchist group.
Right, and I think it also depends on the size, right? I think some of these primitive societies are actually are not just like a dozen people. They're actually quite sizable and do have a functional government structure.
Something that just came to my head. So where do you stand on the whole defund the police? Because obviously police or even military, this is part of government.
I'm for police abolition and having the market provide security. Whenever you have the government having its security is far too important of a service to have a monopoly on it, let alone a government monopoly. And when you have a government monopoly on any product or service, the consequence is always strife, shortages, and other negative externalities.
So you want the free market to be the authority on anything security, police?
I wouldn't say the authority, but yes, the free market provides security far better, just the same way that provides food far better, education far better, and everything else far better than would the government monopoly. Because there's no accountability when it comes to having any kind of monopoly. People understand this about, if you had, like, let's suppose an oil monopoly, which never happened, but let's suppose you had an oil monopoly, that monopoly is not going to be accountable to consumer, to the market. But when you have a government monopoly somehow in security, everyone's like, well, what are you going to do? Well, the answer is to have decentralization and also to have as much of an armed population as possible.
And how does law and order, constitution, just basic framework of what's going on in democracy, how would that factor in?
Anarchism is the mother of order, not the daughter. So if you have, again, the best way to have order between any kind of peoples or organizations is to have it be voluntary and agreed upon. So we have contracts, right? If I go into a business with you, we sit down ahead of time and basically work out the divorce. We're like, all right, these are your responsibilities. These are my responsibilities. What happens if, you get sick and you can't work it out? What happens if I get sick, if I don't fulfill my terms of the contract?
Right, but there's a government body there to enforce that contract, because all of this, what happens if you get sick? What happens if you this? Then I could just do whatever and not abide by the contract if there's no enforcement there.
So whenever you have any sort of voluntary interchange between two people or two or more organizations, it's going to be far more peaceable. And when you have far more of an idea of self-reliance and you have accountability in the entities that are providing any given service, it's going to be far more efficient and far more pervasive and widely available. Food used to be a huge problem even in this country. Nowadays, the problem is there's too much food and everyone's obese. So clothing is another one. We make so many clothes. Back in the day, people had one pair of shoes and you had to wear it all your life. Now we have so many clothes, we're shipping them overseas, and there's literally landfills of these crappy t-shirts.
I have 3 pairs of shoes. I have my dress shoes, I have my work shoes, and I got my Uggs. That's all I need. That is all I need. Monson says, we need a government to protect our rights. If there is no government to protect those rights, what does it stop privatized police agency to run the country? And again, I agree with you. I'm just philosophically, I don't understand how that's different than what we're living right now. It's just not a privatized police agency. It's a governmental agency that has a monopoly on violence, and they cannot be tested or get out of there. They cannot be tested or challenged in any way physically. Whereas, you know, if you had privatized police, then yeah, you could have a little mini civil war, but for obvious reasons, people aren't going to want to do that.
What do you think about communism?
So that's the point of this book.
Okay, tell us about it.
Well, it's really bad. The point of writing The White Pill, and this has nothing to do with anarchism at all, the book, the point of The White Pill is I was kind of disquieted, you know, being born in the former Soviet Union, to what extent it has been almost being forgotten. And this is something.
This is a great comment. Harley says we can't even get people to put their shopping carts back. On top of that, our government protects us from foreign invasion and regulates our economy. Aside from that, we don't need them for much else. And I definitely agree with you. And that is where that's why I was giving the grace of, okay, maybe this is the ideal, because ideally we want to have enough social encouragement or social shame on either side to cover everything. If you're trying to steal from somebody, then instead of it being, you know, you go to jail and whatever, then everybody knows that you're the town thief and nobody will have anything to do with you. It's those kinds of things that you know, we've gotten away from because everybody's just like, oh, the government will do it, even though we know the government sucks at everything. So I'm still with you guys. I'm not championing anarchy. I'm just listening and taking these claims and these ideas as they're coming to me.
That ended in our lifetime, the lifetime of everyone here, and probably the vast majority of people listening as well. And what people went through for decades on the far side of the Iron Curtain was so disturbing and also so hard for us to wrap our heads around. I don't know if any of you have diabetes. I don't, right? If someone tried to tell you what it's like living with diabetes, it's going to be very different from actually living it, right? We can wrap our heads around, okay, I can have candy. Are there other health externalities? You know, can I exercise? Maybe if I want to take a marathon, I'm going to have to do certain things. We're still not going to get there intellectually unless you live it. So we can maybe understand, okay, I'm in school, I'm taught certain things.
Insert trans joke here.
Or someone's listening to me on the phone, or people get arrested and you're powerless to do anything about it. We can maybe understand each of those elements individually, but in terms of understanding that pervasive atmosphere, the tagline of the book, let me get the exact quote. When Rand was testifying in front of Congress, he said, it's almost impossible to convey to a free people what it's like to live in a totalitarian dictatorship. So I would
be so mad because you can see the book's not in frame. When the show started, the book was in frame. And then PBD picked it up and looked at it. He didn't even show it. I mean, he might have shown it, but like he might have just flashed it. And then he put it back down, and now half the thing is off the screen. Just a little thing that definitely I would be mad about. That's exactly why I start the show with the mic over here, so you can see the logo. It's all right. You know, you gotta think about these things. Once it says the only role of government is to protect our rights and to protect the country from foreign invasion. Yes, we just said that. Regulations are just controls the government applies to the markets to control the people. Facts.
To explain throughout the course of this book just what it was like. And
there we go.
My protege was just in Prague. They have something there called the Museum of.
I had no idea that he was going to move the book, but I noticed it because he picked it up. But I guess PVD noticed that.
Communism. And you know what's great about this museum is it's not written in this Western style in a scholarly manner, because it's like, according to these demented ideas, we were all supposed to have food, but instead we were starving. And when he sent me all the photos of the captions, because I wanted to quote one for the book, it made me appreciate for the first time what it was like for my family in the sense of totalitarianism. You know, this is a stupid pun, but it's not a pun, but it means total. So it's everywhere. There's nowhere to go from the moment you're born till the time you die, and you're told you can't leave. So let's suppose there's a politician you hate, or you hate politics in general, you hate Trump, you think Biden's a fool. You can watch sports, you can listen to music, you can read books, historical books or contemporary books. Yes, they're trying to put politics into everything, but there's certainly very many venues where you could escape, or even just talking to your friends. They didn't have that. And even just talking to your friends, you have to wonder, all right, did Pat turn? did someone get to him, or is he just doing this for status, for money? So that kind of sense of having something, the government and that ideology govern every aspect of your life, is something that I think is important for those of us who love any semblance of freedom, Republican or Democrat, to appreciate.
So that argument again goes to that could work for those that are independent. They can take care of themselves. But if you can't, and you and I have to police everybody, do I already want to deal with policing everybody?
Well, I don't know that that's the claim, that we have to police everybody. I think that's a mischaracterization. And Matza, maybe we will cover that, but especially if I don't know much about anarchy, this is definitely a better place to start than a 4.5 hour stream. We do 4 hours here, and we're I'm trying to blaze through this. This is 2.5 hours. I have some parts that we can skip and stuff, but there's a lot more work involved in that. I think it's more helpful for, there's a reason that Lex Friedman has a very specific style. It's a very intellectual, very straightforward, very just academic type of thing, which, is great if you're trying to learn. But for me, trying to entertain you guys, that's not necessarily the best, always the best thing. I mean, I know Michael Malice will make entertainment out of anything. But, and I mean, I'll definitely check it out, but I'm just saying, we're obviously not doing that right now.
Well, I already want to, if there isn't, so what
are you growing your own food?
What do you think about law and order? What do you think about law? What do you think about law and order?
Wait, hold on. Are you growing your own food?
What do you think about law and order?
I am in favor of order. I don't think law is a good mechanism of getting order.
Ooh, I'm in favor of order. I don't think law is a good mechanism of getting order. That is, again, a strong claim, and let's see what he has to say about it. Hey, give me a timestamp and hey, this is exactly what Discord is for, brother. Get me a timestamp and we can definitely do it. But I'm already, I got YouTube videos coming out my eyes. But yeah, that's a very interesting claim there.
Growing your own food?
What do you think about law and order?
I am in favor of order. I don't think law is a good mechanism of getting order.
Okay, so what order are you a fan of? Just the people in the community deciding what it is, or
I'm in favor of people behaving peacefully, which is overwhelmingly the norm. And in fact, the problem is that so much crime is granted legitimacy and is not punished as a consequence due to having a government monopoly on policing.
Okay, so you're not a fan of law?
No, I think having a monopoly means that product or service is not going to be distributed well, or if at all. We have right now, and no one even thinks this is weird. Prosecutors a lot of times will be like, yeah, I'm not going to prosecute this. How is that law? That's crazy.
I understand you're taking one element of it, but if you, we had Gordon Chang on. I don't know if you know who Gordon Chang is. So Gordon Chang, who lived in China for 20 some years, and he says China was a mess when there was no law.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to this, but I just want to, I'm thinking about this, and I really want you guys to, I know, Matza, you haven't been here as long as some of the other people, but I do want to reiterate what exactly we're doing here. I'm not trying to be like a teacher or a guru or anything like that. I'm also not trying to be a newsman. I'm not trying to be anything like that. The goal here is to take interesting conversations or conversations with interesting people and break them down in a way that hopefully you guys are entertained and that you do learn, but the understanding about the conversation itself, the art of conversation, the art of discussion, how people converse with each other, all that stuff. That's way more important to me to talk about than any particular fact that I could teach you guys, because you guys could easily go and watch the clip of 45-minute clip of Lex Friedman and Michael Malice talking. You don't need me for that. So I'm not going to waste your time just doing something you could do on your own time. When you come here, I want to respect your time and do something that you can't get without me. There ain't nobody else like the Indian Jesus. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know, I don't talk too often about that, but if you didn't know, now you know. Simon says, as privatized security is going to be a law enforcement agency. But controlled by who? Decentralized and localized. Anything is typically better than central and federal. I'm sure there's, counterexamples, but a law enforcement agency isn't necessarily the and you know, if there are no laws, they're certainly not enforcing that. They're just an order enforcement agency. I think that's what his argument would be.
Because little to no
Let's
law.
go back. I was not really listening.
We had Gordon Chang on. I don't know if you know who Gordon Chang is. So Gordon Chang, who lived in China
Chang
for
or
20 some
Chen?
years, and he says China was a mess when there was no law, because little to no law. And he says in 1984, some number like that, he said there was 4 universities that gave away law degrees because it wasn't something that was popular. And they realized capitalism doesn't work without laws, because somebody can bully and take advantage of the other person. What is your POV of not needing laws?
Wait. I find it crazy to think that there's no bullying in China, especially via the state. I mean, the whole point of the communist system.
A lot less than before. This is why their innovation grew the way it has the last 40 years, because they added laws, which they didn't have before.
But they did have laws, but that law was basically the will of whoever the CP official was. Like, and that's the problem. The problem is the laws don't apply to, you know, a Joe Biden or a Donald Trump like they would apply to you or me, or to someone who's much poorer than us. If you had a system where services are provided by freedom, it's going to be a lot more equitable, and it's going to be a lot more coherent. Because if I am trying to get, I'm promoting a product or service, I need to be able to put my money where my mouth is. Whereas if a cop shoots someone, it's like, well, oops, you're just going to be suspended and get a pension. It's absolutely the double standard between something with a monopoly and something that is provided when there's an element of competition is just night and day.
So you're saying if there's no cops, people won't rob?
How do you argue with that? Monza says the law will be whatever they say it is, without the umbrella of government to protect our rights. I mean, yeah, I agree. You know, I agree with that. But the idea is not the fact that there are rules and order. It's the enforcement. It's the monopoly on violence. It's the monopoly on enforcement. That's the focus of anarchy. Not as far as I'm understanding it. It's not that we want to have, and I'm saying we as, you know, the royal, you know what I mean? It's not that he wants there to be no standards, no order. He just said he's a big fan of order. He just doesn't think that laws are a good way to get there. And I think that's the key confusion of what people, when people have this conversation about anarchy or anarchists, where they're actually coming from. And so again, that's why I think that even the Lex conversation, based on the way that you're talking, maybe, you know, the next conversation that you need to listen to after this one, because this one lays a bit more of a foundation.
Saying there's no, I was saying if there's no government monopoly,
if there's no government cops,
because he said, yeah, let's back it up again.
Day.
So you're saying if there's no cops, people won't rob?
I'm just saying there's no. I was saying if there's no government monopoly,
if there's no government cops, let's just say there's no government cops.
I'll give you an example that's happening. This isn't hypothetical.
Yeah.
So everyone here, if you go to a bar which is full of young males, full of testosterone and alcohol, it is still safer there than in the places where the government is providing security, such as city parks at night.
That is facts. How do you argue with that?
Alleys, the subways. When you have, there's no incentive.
Monzo, we will get there. We will get there. Stick with me. Stick with the conversation. Stick with the conversation.
For a government monopoly to provide its service. And in fact, the worse it provides its service, the more taxes the politicians are there in a position to demand that the populace pay in, because they can say, look, we have a problem. We need more of this. We need more of that. So when things are provided privately, and hotels is another good example. Everyone in a hotel is not native to the area where they're in. It's still safer in a hotel than in public housing where everyone actually lives there and you know who lives there.
That's a great point. Holly says he's not saying no cops. He's saying the law enforcement agencies are all owned by the government. Instead, allow private and public businesses to own and run law enforcement agencies. Exactly. That is what he is saying. That's what he's saying. Now, whether we, you, I, and Harley Monson, whether we agree or disagree with that, it's important to understand what it is that he's presenting before we determine, you know, but before we go down as far, Monsa, as you're trying to go. That's what I'm saying. You have this idea of what he stands for and what he is, and that's fine. But I can't address that if he hasn't said anything about it. And so if we are getting to, and you know, I can't just bring it up out of nowhere. So if you want to have that conversation, we can start right off with that when we go to Discord. But I can't just bring that up out of nowhere.
sound so convincing. It's
But
not
how do you
funny.
argue with this?
But here's the part. You sound so convincing. If your ideas are so perfect the way you sell them, how come others are not implementing it? You can't tell me it's because, well, you know, the way the world has ruled is the people of power are so power hungry that they eventually go up there and all of them unite and they don't want to do anything and they're not willing to give up their powers and their privileges. And this is why the idea of anarchy has never been, because I get it and these other guys don't, right? So if it's so perfect the way you do
I
it,
didn't say perfect.
if it's as good as the way you sell it,
Right.
why aren't smart people out there implementing it?
Because the government co-ops smart people. The whole point of our university system is to train the next generation of.
Maybe
Do
80%.
you want to hear my answer?
Maybe
Okay,
80%.
This
That everything he says, I'm having a hard time arguing with it. The government co-ops smart people. Think of any person that you know who's really smart, who has been in school, especially after the ages of like 23, 24, 25. If they're still in school, they've been, and it's not about being in school. It's about not having not been in school. That you've been in school for 20 straight years. All of your life has been in the context of these are my assignments. I'm worried about these grades, you know, whatever else, and everything else is secondary. And that's why you see when you get these intellectuals, shout out to Anarud, anybody who has been here from the way beginning. That's why you get these people who think they know everything about everything just because they assume that, oh, well, you don't have a degree in that. Where's the study? They don't have the power to think critically. They just have the power to check with the person who's supposed to know more than they do.
is a couple of things. First of all, I think all of us would agree here that alcohol prohibition was a bad idea, which did not, I don't think at all decrease the amount of alcohol consumption in this country, or maybe marginally, but vastly increased the amount of crime in this country. How was it that alcohol prohibition was such a popular idea that it got 2/3 of the Congress and was it 3/4 of the states to ratify it?
That's a good point. Just because it's popular doesn't mean it's a good idea. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's moral. Harley says it hasn't been done because we're stubborn Americans and don't want to change our ways. Plus, no government willingly gives up control. They always try to gain more. And I think that's absolutely right. But I don't know that that's an answer to PBD's question. Because despite the fact that this is completely true, we would expect that if this ideology is as good as he is saying, like PBD is teeing up, that more smart people who are not in government would be like, hey, this is the way we need to do things. So I'm going to guess that he is going to say something along the lines of, a lot of people do talk about this. They just don't use the word anarchy. They present ideas that fall in line with anarchy, but just don't know that it's anarchy or don't call it anarchy or what or something along those lines. Hey, Kelly Green in the building. What is good? What is good? Oh man, good to see you, brother. We thought you died, man. Where you been? Where you been? Glad to see you, brother. Glad you are here.
Because there's very many examples. To broader speaking, politics are non-rational. There's an entire system in place where people will vote for their tribe as opposed to the other tribe and not really care if any of their ideas or views are implemented, just so long as their team wins. And this is something we're taught. Yep. If you ask conservatives, why are you voting for Dr. Oz? He supported Jussie Smollett. He supported trans kids. They're going to say, well, what do you want me to do? Vote for Fetterman? These are my only options. So we're trained since kids that your only options are voting, and the two choices are Republican or Democrat.
No, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with.
He said he's still Kelly Green. Well, I'm glad you're better, brother. Glad you are better.
With what you just
and
said.
Also, and I just I'm guessing since you weren't here, you didn't know. I'm taking everybody's wrenches away, and then the people who are doing asking people to like the video, dropping links when other YouTubers come in, making sure the chat is kept respectful, all that stuff. Those people are going to get wrenches back if they would like them. So if you want one, just do what Harley's doing.
So one more thing, just sorry, this is very key, because Noam Chomsky, who's also an anarchist, a prominent linguist as well, he has this.
Really? I didn't know that Noam Chomsky was an anarchist. Interesting. Because he is the like the darling of the classical liberals. Like if you are a liberal from like the 60s and 70s, Noam Chomsky can do no wrong. Now, because he's part of that cohort, we know exactly, how that mentality has shifted in the last 30, 40 years. But it's interesting. Noam Chomsky is an anarchist.
Great quote. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher the exact wording. He goes, the way to control a society is to have strictly delineated terms of argument, but have very vigorous debate between those terms. So Jimmy Dore, I don't know if you ever had him on the show, just great.
I'm surprised that Noam said that. And when I asked him if he would ever debate Thomas Sowell, he avoided it.
Well, I'm not surprised.
What?
Yeah, I'm very surprised he didn't want to talk to Thomas Sowell.
Jimmy was on.
I just dropped a video about Thomas Sowell today, like 2 hours ago. So as soon as this is done, or in a new tab, or whatever, check that out.
2 weeks ago.
Jimmy's great, but he gave an example of this. Like if you watch like The View, the choices are going to be: can I curse?
Yeah.
Should we bomb the shit out of Syria?
No,
or
don't
should we bomb
curse.
the fucking shit out of Syria? Right? We're always presented with a very limited range of options on, and then you think, okay, I either have CNN or Fox, but that's basically where the Overton window lies. So any ideas that are a radical threat to the governing structure are going to be marginalized, and you're going to be told, until very recently, when you had independent venues like this, that you're crazy or this is impossible or it'll never happen. And for many people, still to this day, there's a huge social cost in adopting an ideology that's regarded as marginal or unpopular.
I don't know about that.
Harley says, I've heard this talked about before. We don't think about things like this because when it comes to the free market, not many of us actually know much about it and how our government works with it. Facts. People are very ill-informed, underinformed, misinformed, disinformed about how, the everything about the country, about how it works. Absolutely true.
It's a social cost.
No, okay. So what I think you're doing is super necessary, is because you're making people think, right? You're making people think and say, okay, he sounds convincing. He sounds very confident. Doesn't necessarily mean you're right, but it's good the fact that we're having this discourse, right? And the audience can be like, well, Pat, you made a good point. You don't know what you're talking about. You need to do your research on this. You got to go read this. Okay, well, Michael, Patrick asked that question. You didn't really give the right answer. No? Great. Let them decide on what they want to do. But here's a part.
That's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
So what I think has happened the last few years is we've shown with this tool, we got right now, 9,100 people live watching. By the time this is going to be done within a 2-hour period, 100,000 people will watch it, 24 hours, all the clips together.
We got less than 10. I can't even get, all right.
We got 4 or 5 million people that watch this to get this argument. Okay. We didn't have this 20 years ago.
Correct.
Right? So 20 years ago, Michael Malice, you would have had to gone the traditional way of maybe instead of sleeping 9 hours, you would have slept 7.5 hours to make it, because a tool like this isn't out there to market it. So it would have been much harder for a guy like you to make it to where you are today, right? Today, the tools allow you to live the life that you've always dreamt about living, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
However, here's what I think is this tool is given. And you may disagree. If 20 years ago, somebody said, guys, in 20 years, trans people are going to be accepted, men are going to be transitioning into women and competing, and the Democratic Party, who's always been, they claim they're for women, they're feminists, they're going to be okay with men saying they're women, competing against women, beating records, and they're going to be cornered to, and trans, they're going to be all over the place. And Drew Barrymore is going to bring a person in, Dylan, and she's going to get on her knees in front of him and say, I totally understand your pain. That'll never happen. I'm telling you that's what's going to happen. But let me tell you what else is going to happen. What's that? You don't think these CNN, the Fox, all these guys, yeah, what about them? They're going to get crushed by this guy named Joe. What are you talking about? Just regular Joe? It's just a regular Joe. He's not a regular Joe. I'm telling you, CNN and Fox are going to be crushed by a guy named Joe. What does this guy do? Is he a billionaire? Does he have more money than them? No. He just talks and makes people think and brings different people on. What? So what has he done? Do you know marijuana that is illegal today? Yeah. That guy's going to make people think marijuana is not a big deal. And matter of fact, he's going to bring the richest guy in the world on, and that guy's going to smoke weed. And then he's going to, the next day, the market's going to come after him. But now smoking weed is no longer what it was before. Get the hell out of here, Michael. You're out of your mind. That'll never happen in America, conservative. No, it is. It is. I'm telling you. And you're not even going to think twice. Last week, I'm in Bahamas 3-4 days ago.
I'm not sure what his point is.
The day I'm in a game, we'll walk by my kids. What is that smell? It's what is that animal that smells like weed? It's a skunk. Oh, that's what a skunk smells like?
You didn't know?
Yeah, that's a skunk. I'm like, oh, really? Yeah, it's a skunk sound. That's what it is. Oh, okay, cool. That's not skunk, man. It's like 5 minutes later, Dylan's smiling. I'm like,
oh, that's some skunk. You know what I mean?
No wonder this guy's so happy right now. So no one cares about smoking weed today. 20 years ago was crazy. So this is the point I'm trying to make to you, Michael, and take this personal. I want you to get
okay. So we're getting to the point.
Get upset.
I'm not going to get
and
that.
Say, screw you, Pat.
I'm not going to say
okay, that's good. Here's what I would say. If the last 20 years some of the craziest, wackiest ideas are now being talked about. And some of the things that the conservatives would have never accepted are now saying, it's just weed. Maybe your argument isn't that good, or maybe you're just not good at presenting your argument for other people to pick it up. Because if there's ever been a time to sell your philosophies to be received by millions of people around the world, now is the time. How come there's not been that kind of momentum yet?
The Anarchist Handbook hit number 3 on Amazon. 20 years ago, that book would have been published. So if you're asking me why we haven't gone from the state in 2003 to anarchism today, I haven't been at it that long. Secondly, I don't think you're going to deny, if you look at social media and other outlets, which are imperfect, but certainly loose vectors or metrics rather by how popular ideas are, the views that I'm putting forward are infinitely more popular than they were 20 years ago. And it is a result of exactly what you're talking about. The fact that now you do not, before we were born, I think you and I are around the same age, you had 3 television stations, and it's ABC, NBC, CBS. And if you went back in time and you're like, they're like, we have choices.
This is spot on. This is spot on. Because these things take time, and they take the right conditions, and they take the right person. And so maybe, I don't know, but maybe the cultural norms weren't in a place where we were ready to look that far outside the box, that Michael Malice wasn't here, and podcasting wasn't a thing. So, like PBD was just saying, he would have had to go through the normal channels. And despite the fact that the Overton window has moved so much, maybe this is just something that is entering the realm of what is acceptable. And to go number 3 on Amazon, I mean, that's not nothing. That's not nothing. Harley says that's true. The government shouldn't be involved in the free market, because it's a free market, hence the name. Yup. I don't know about you guys, but I can distinctly tell the difference between the two. I said, shit, me too. Mon says, and they extract force from our markets and establish a general rule of law. The government has a role, and they are overreaching the way they are. Meow. Yup.
My friend really loves CBS, but he's an idiot. You know, you got to listen to ABC. And what it all was corporate media, and they all basically had the same message, if not identical message. Nowadays, then Fox started, and it's like, oh my God, we have Fox. We got to put Fox out of business. These people are crazy. I think most people on the internet have to look at Fox. They think that the average age of a Fox viewer is deceased, and that it is to regard Fox as a vector of kind of radicalism as opposed to maybe like a hardcore Republican outlet is absurd. You're not going to really find much radicalism on Fox, other than maybe sometimes the mass.
By the way, you know what would be a great commercial?
Except for the fact that, Tucker actually showed real footage of a real thing that everybody claims was the worst day in American history, but wasn't.
You know what would be a great commercial? You just give me an idea. If CNN or any of these guys wanted to kind of make a commercial to bash Fox, all they have to do is go rent out a cemetery, put a TV there, and Fox TV all over the place. And the only people that listen to Fox are dead people. Listen to CNN, listen to ABC. That'd be a pretty.
But let me ask you this. So your position is that it's a great thing that this trend stuff's happening in sports?
No, I don't think. I'm just saying, if a crazy idea like that has created this kind of momentum, how come your wonderful idea hasn't?
Well, I don't think
that's a great because it could be construed that you're saying like all of these liberal things are accepted. It's easy to see that as saying that that all of that is a good thing, and that wasn't the point he was making. He was just saying whether they're good or not, they're now acceptable. How come your idea is not acceptable? And I think it's a perfectly reasonable response to say, not yet.
I think that ideas necessarily become popular as a function of how true or
But I think Joe's idea is a great idea that created momentum. People who were not on his side said that makes sense.
Right. So what I'm saying is sometimes great ideas do catch fire and become popular, and sometimes really deranged ideas do catch fire and become popular because how ideas are formed in this country and in most country isn't a function of people sit down, they do the research, they look at both sides, and they kind of maybe argue with their neighbors. This is just this Enlightenment delusion about how people come to political conclusions. People far often read Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind. People come to their political conclusions for evolutionary reasons, meaning I wanted the bandwagon effect. You know, when after Kennedy was shot, they asked people who you voted for in the 1960 election, which was the closest election in American history. And the percentage of people who had remembered, I think sincerely, that they had voted for Kennedy over Nixon was far more than the number of people who actually did it, because we tend to want to think of ourselves as being on the winning side. Low status people have an enormous incentive to not rock the boat because they're not in a position to kind of have radical ideas. I
wonder how that would be, that same kind of study in whatever 10 years, however long they did that study with the JFK voting, and so many more people genuinely thought that they voted for JFK than actually did. I wonder how many people would admit how hostile and vitriolic and nasty they were over the past 3 years. I'm willing to bet a lot of them be like, no, it wasn't me. What? That TikTok that's not even me. That was 3 years ago. I'm like a whole different person. Mount says, yeah, bad ideas grab a hold and take off all the time. Look at socialism. Great point. So just because it's popular doesn't mean it's good, and just because it's not popular doesn't mean it's bad. That's the answer to PBD's question. Again, Monsa, you're doing a better job of answering the anarchist question than Malice is. So maybe, I mean, that might be exactly why it's not as popular as he would like.
Because think about it, if I go to an office and I have some kind of wacky ideology and I'm not empowered, right away I'm outgroup. So this is one of the many reasons why ideas that are radical are not necessary. But it's something broader. I don't care about popularity of an idea, because I don't think politics is moved by the majority. Politics is often...
I don't disagree.
Let me just finish. Politics is always moved by an informed, ideological, usually radicalized minority. And this country was founded by a bunch of very small percentage of people who had a vision, and they didn't even bother asking the masses what they thought about it.
That's a good point. And I always come back to Lee's question about what matters more in politics, feelings or policy. And the fact is that most people don't know a lot about policy. Most people just vote on how they feel. We have to grapple with that reality. That yep. At first, I was like, of course, policy over everything. I wish it were that way, but it ain't.
Then that says, if since 1539 this has been an idea, how come it's died?
I don't think it's died at all. I think the idea that government is inherently legitimate is more popular now than
I don't think that's an anarchy philosophy. I think that's
the definition of anarchy.
No, but
Aha. What did I say earlier? That something is going to, he's going to say something along the lines of that people are already practicing this and just simply don't think of it as anarchy. And he's absolutely right on both sides of the aisle. Disdain for the government and the establishment and the media and all of that is very popular. It's very popular. Even the people who think that they're against the establishment, but are really just doing the bidding of the establishment, still think that they're against the establishment.
But a lot of people, both on the left and the right, would agree that the government is too big.
Not the government. I didn't say too big. Not the government. Government itself. The concept.
So in your world, there shouldn't be a government.
Or the idea of the government is not legitimate. Yes.
I don't think people would say the legitimate. Define legitimate.
Something legitimate for a government to be legitimate means it is in a moral position to enact its edicts upon its subjects.
In order for it to be legitimate, is in a moral position to enact its edicts upon its subjects. And he's saying it's inherently impossible for that to be the case. I mean, I'm not going to be able to just determine right here whether I agree with that or not. But very interesting definition of legitimate government. Is that a legitimate government? Are they morally in the position to do what they want to do? Interesting. Yeah, people equate anarchism with barbarism, and it's not the same thing. It's just not.
Okay, so in other words, I don't think government is legitimate, meaning it's not necessary.
No, it doesn't. Like, I don't have a right to go in your wallet and take money, right? But somehow the withholding tax is where people think, well, taxes are the price you pay for civilized society. That, to me and to other anarchists, is not legitimate.
How far
taxation is theft
off are you from Ayn Rand's philosophy?
Well, Rand hated anarchists. She's on the cover of the book. She's the first chapter is her testifying in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee. It's funny because her kind of objectivism, I don't like calling it a cult, but it basically has cult-like aspects. But what she describes as Galt's Gulch in Atlas Shrugged is effectively a private anarchist community.
Who else is on that book, by the way?
It's
Thatcher,
Margaret Thatcher, Emma Goldman, and Elena Ceausescu.
And why'd you pick those four?
I wanted since the book is dealing about starving the Holodomor, starving millions of people in Ukraine, concentration camps, the gulags, the show trials, the Stasi, and ultimately the fall of the Soviet Union and its subject satellite states. I wanted Jane Wiedlin was the rhythm guitarist for the Go-Go's, and she had this comment about their music, which is very new wave music, that it sounds very chipper, but if you look at the lyrics, they're very, very sad. So I wanted the cover to be like, all right, the content is going to be very, very dark, but I want it to be like sunny and almost silly. So the cover looks like kind of like a 1970s like a movie poster or a play poster, and you would think it's kind of a romance novel, but I wanted to have that bright sunny cover, given that the contents are so dark and disturbing.
Michael, were you born in Ukraine?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what do you think about what's going on right now in Ukraine?
I don't think I have a very informed perspective on what's going on.
So that's basically they go on for a little while about this, and that's the him just defending not having an opinion on this. So I'm just going to skip forward a little bit.
Create your own guidelines. You got land. You're happy with
they
it.
They don't have to be anarchists. I mean,
for anarchy to happen, no, but this is ever happen if that's the case.
It's position or an disregard the legitimacy of government overnight.
Okay.
So this is not a situation where there's like an anarchist answer, or I'm in a position or an authority to speak for anarchism.
Then if that's the case, anarchy will never happen if that's the case.
It's happening right now. This is us. This is anarchism.
No, but
told
this is at a very, very low level. Anarchy, well, let me rephrase that. For anarchy to happen at the highest level, based on what you're saying, it'll never happen.
But there is no highest level under anarchism. The whole point is that if you want to say that anarchism can only work in a small community, fine. Let us have our community and leave us alone.
Okay, so that's what you are. Then you would much rather have your own community. You go live in with a bunch of anarchists, and you guys create your own guidelines. You got land. You're happy with it.
They don't have to be anarchists. I mean, it doesn't. Here's the thing.
So again, I think there was an assumption from myself and PBD and the rest of them that being an anarchist means that you want to impose the ideology of anarchy on other people. But it sounds like he just wants to be able to operate outside of the jurisdiction of the government within the government. Like, just having a co-op where like you govern yourselves and you do your own thing. That's a very different thing than saying America can be anarchistic. That's very different.
Do you regard
if they're not anarchists?
Hold on, let me ask you.
If one of them is ambitious and he says, "Look, I
look at the look down." You're like, "Bro, just let me talk."
I have ambitions in an anarchy system. That guy's eventually going to go and say, "Here's what I think we should be doing." And if that guy's got better ideas than yours, or is better at selling it than you, then eventually it's going to convert into a different kind of a government.
No,
when you die.
Not necessarily, because I don't.
That doesn't make any sense.
I'll answer.
I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Better ideas are not the ones that always win out, as prohibition demonstrated, because then we repealed it several years later. There's many examples in the markets where
well, theoretically, doing away with prohibition would be the better idea working out, but I get where he's coming from.
Ideas work for a temporary period, then they're rejected. But let me just speak to your point earlier.
There you go.
If the Chinese government right now passed a law that said everyone has to wear orange all the time, would you regard those laws as valid?
If China did what?
If China passed a law, an edict that said everyone on Earth has to wear orange, would you find that as legitimate? That's not what I asked you. Would you regard it as legitimate? Would you start wearing orange?
No.
Why not? Because they don't look Dutch.
Is that they wear orange in Holland?
I wouldn't wear it. That's why I'm not living there.
Right, but why wouldn't you wear it?
It's I like my choices.
Okay, but do you regard that law as legitimate or not?
No.
Okay, so all anarchism says is that it regards Washington's laws as legitimate as those of Beijing.
You can say that all you want. All I'm saying to you is you
and I will.
You should.
This is anarchy.
But you should say that. That's great. But to think that this is at the top level, so if I ask you those questions and then I say, well, what do you think about what's going on with Ukraine? And well, I'm not educated enough to get on. Okay, but you're from there. Yeah, but I'm an American myself. I understand it, but you're from there. Yeah, but I left when I was a year and a half. I don't remember anything. I'm more like I speak Russian. Okay, I get that. But you have these ideas of anarchy in a situation like anarchy. What should happen over there? Well, we're not there right now for us to give that opinion. Then your argument loses weight because it can only that argument can only be sold in low-level conversations, not at high-level conversations. A conversation that carries weight and momentum is got enough backing to say it would work. If right now, let's just say the world was ran this way, here's what would happen between Russia and Ukraine. Leave them alone. Okay, then Ukraine would become Russia. Well, that's their business.
That's not it at all. My point.
I mean, I agree with that. So if that's not what it is, I guess I'm not an anarchist, because that sounds like I'm right in line with that. We have nothing to do with that. If Ukraine becomes Russia, Ukraine becomes Russia. I feel for the Ukrainian people, but what do you want me to do about it? Holly says we can't totally get rid of our government, unfortunately, but we can greatly reduce our government's power, which the majority of people agree with. Absolutely.
Point is, I think it's important when someone gets on a mic to come at it from an informed perspective. And I think just because an issue is very popular in the news, that does not mean that it's. Are you going to let me finish or not? That does not.
I'm shaking my head doesn't mean you can't finish.
Fine. It doesn't mean that I have to have an opinion on every single issue. And I think a big problem in our
getting heated
culture is that everyone feels to have an opinion on every single concern. I'm not a Ukrainian. I'm not in Eastern Europe. I've never stepped foot there since I was 1.5. So I agree with you. I don't know how anarchist principles would happen in the middle of a war between Russia and Ukraine. I don't know who the good guys are.
Then it's a good conversation to have, to go on shows and all this other stuff, but it doesn't carry enough weight on its own to rule or to have a country around it. That's kind of what you're saying.
But it's not. I'm saying it wouldn't be a.
Hold on. So Monza says the countries like Malice said are operating on an anarchist system. That's why Russia invaded Ukraine. Both of those countries have governments. Both of those countries have leaders. I don't know what they call Zelensky, but Putin is absolutely a dictator. So that is the complete opposite of anarchy, as I understand it. No?
Country. It's a relationship. So number one. And second of all, hold on. I don't think that if the US was communist, fascist, liberal, conservative, progressive, I don't think any of those would inform the question of what should the US do vis-a-vis the Ukraine and Russia. It's not a function of what government we have, what the right thing to do is over there.
So do you have a vision with anarchy?
I was just going to ask that question.
What's your vision with anarchy? Like in an ideal world?
There's no ideal world. That's the problem. It's not a utopian system. What's
your vision? What's your vision with anarchy?
My vision is a situation where more people are responsible for their own lives.
Which we have today.
I said more people.
Okay.
More people are. I don't think we have that today at all. More people are responsible for their own lives. There's less of a reliance on corporate news sources. There's less respect for the university system. And there's an increasing amount of absolute contempt, if not levels of hatred, toward government and government officials.
I think we have all of those that are making progress on today. I would easily sell it to you. I think Biden will go down in the history books, at least out of all the presidents that we've had, as the guy that drove more homeschooling than any other president in the history of mankind.
That's true.
Well,
that was Trump. That was COVID.
It's not Trump. It's COVID.
It was COVID. It was not either of them.
But it wasn't either of those. It was the ideology itself. The fact that the lockdown happened only served to show that to the people. But Trump didn't introduce this stuff. And I mean, certainly he didn't do enough to push back against it. But it absolutely was Biden who has created the push for this stuff that then had the effect of homeschooling, which is exactly what he's talking about. Holly says Russia invaded Ukraine because they want control of the Black Sea. Okay, fair enough.
But it's COVID Biden because of what's going on with, pushing these education. And even DeSantis, I would also say, was the spokesperson to drive people to consider saying, I'm either going to do private school, I'm either going to leave the state, or I'm going to do homeschooling. I think it's a combination of COVID, Biden, DeSantis together are driving it. So
that's true.
That's progress. Next one.
So Mod says there's no one ruler over both countries or laws that they have to follow. That's why Russia invaded. They do not have a rule of law that governs them together. Okay. I misunderstood what you were saying before, but yeah, okay. I agree with that. I don't have an issue with that happening. I don't have as Chester said in Discord, humanity has always been conquer or be conquered. We live these cushy lives now, but that doesn't mean that our nature disappears. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have wars. We're not going to have bad people. We're not going to have things. It's just the idea here is that the government getting involved in any of this, or a government, using this, if there were, and I mean, the fact of the matter is, you could say there's no one ruler over both countries, but we're talking about, there's NATO involved. And so NATO is kind of driving driving the conflict. So that's not really anarchistic in the same way that they're talking about, but it's close enough. I don't I'm not sure how this is a point to say that anarchy is bad. Because that's what it seems like you're trying to say with this, and but I'm not connecting the dots. Hey, we got Divining Rod in the building. What is good? What is good? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. My biggest supporter. Thank you so much for being here. Says anarcho anything will result in kissing running water. What is kissing running water? Missing running water, waste treatment plants, firefighters with the proper training, and millions of dollars of equipment to get you out of whatever mess you're in. Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. You leaving us already? Oh no! Come on, man. All right. Well, thank you for stopping by, brother. Always appreciate it.
The data that's coming out that says in K through 12 schools, 99% of health teachers gave money to the Democratic Party, 97% of English teachers gave money to the Democratic Party, and 87 out of 100 math and science teachers gave their money to the Democratic Party. That means they got a monopoly on that mindset that they're teaching the kids. And for every 13 professor or 12 professor that's a Democrat, one of them is a Republican. So these numbers are coming out and people are saying, that's not cool. So you're either going to create a university or I'm going to do online schooling. I don't even want my kids to go to college. Why would I want to send my kids to college? People are making decisions. We're making progress. And then social media, mainstream media, I think it's very obvious. Can you realize Jeff Zucker got fired when? When did Jeff Zucker get fired?
Less than a year ago.
Now, what's going on with Chris Licht, where he's at? What's going on with Chris Licht? He's either just got fired or is about to get fired, right?
Is he really?
He's in a deep, he's not in a good place. If you pull up...
oh, I got it. Thank you, Harley. Okay, so let's try that. Round 2. Anarcho anything will result in kissing, running water, waste treatment plants, firefighters with proper training, and millions of dollars of equipment to get you out of whatever mess you're in. Goodbye. So that's the opposite of what I thought you were saying. Because I don't know. I don't understand why we wouldn't have running water. I don't understand why we wouldn't have waste treatment plants. I don't understand why we wouldn't have firefighters with proper training. And why wouldn't we have millions of dollars of equipment to get us out of whatever mess we're in? In fact, we would have probably not millions, but billions of dollars more to put towards all of these things if we didn't have a government that we needed to maintain with all this tax money. You have private entities doing all of this stuff, and because they're not the only ones doing it, because they don't have a monopoly on it, then they have reason to do the best job they can, because otherwise, if you sign up with this fire department and they screw shit up, then, okay, that's not ideal for you, but now everybody else knows, okay, we got to switch over to the better fire department because these guys, not doing too good. Hey, we have all this waste that we need to get rid of. I will pay somebody something to do it. Okay, I'll do it for $1,000 a day. I'll do it for $950. All right, $950 wins. Firefighters, I mean, why wouldn't we have, we already have firefighters that are well trained. Why would those firefighters not start a firefighter training business? That would be the first thing I would do if things were, flipped upside down and I was a government employee and now there's no more government. Well, hey, there's a bunch of people who needed to fill the role of what the government was doing, and I know how to do it. So not only can I be a private firefighter and make more money than I would have with the government, then I can also, on the side, or instead, just teach people how to be firefighters and never have to go into a burning building ever again. Why is that wrong? Mon says, insurance companies will provide most of the property damage control. For what? We don't, but again, the insurance companies are going to need to have that same level of competition because they're not going to be, there's no government for them to cozy up to. It's just going to be like, okay, what are your rates? What are your restrictions? Are you providing me a service? If so, then I will give you my money to insure me. If not, I'll go to the next person who can do the exact same thing. They could do it better. They can do it for lower prices. That is how capitalism has always worked. Valuetainment says, because anarchy lacks the proper leadership to organize it at large scale. How do you know that? We already have leaders. People who are leaders will lead. Plus, how do you split up wastewater? What happens when the firefighters are at another job? Everyone ever need a plumber at 3 a.m.? Why? The same, like, what do you mean? The companies that want to get involved in wastewater can get together. Like, how do you think they split it up now? You think it's some algorithm? It's just people sitting in a room saying, okay, we're going to draw this line here, that line there, that line there. We're still talking about the same people. We're still talking about the same area. We're just talking about a different way of doing it. What happens when firefighters are at another job? Well, hey, we're hiring firefighters because the last time there was a fire, we didn't have any firefighters. So we need more firefighters. Hey, we need plumbers, and no plumber is willing to get up at 3 a.m. Are you willing to work the graveyard shift as a plumber? We will pay you to do it. All of these things are non-issues that are already solved by capitalism. They're just made worse by government intervention. It says we would still have that stuff, and more likely even better, because now they have competition. Exactly. They still have laws and standards to follow. We know anything involving the government sucks. Yep. There's no, yep, exactly. Okay, but again, literally the same people from the city who are handling the wastewater could still handle the wastewater. They're not going to have a job because there's going to be no government. And so all they know how to do is handle wastewater. So they can be the ones who handle the wastewater.
Stupid.
It says, plus, this allows innovation in these areas. The government doesn't do innovation or invention of products or services. I mean, you can count. It depends on, you know, NASA has given us some cool stuff, but other than that, 100%. It's just, these are non-issues. You're saying, well, if the government doesn't pay for this, then how are we going to have it? Then you just pay for it. You're already paying for it because the government doesn't have any money. They just have your money. And because it's your money and not their money, they spend it in a way that you wouldn't spend it. So, wrong on everything.
Chris Licht about to be fired. So mainstream media, when Russell Brand goes on Bill Maher and annihilates an MSNBC guy to his face.
Did y'all see that? I don't want to play it because I don't know what the copyright claim on HBO is going to be, even though tomorrow I have a clip from that episode, the new rules coming out. Check that at, I don't know what time it's going to be out, but check. But Russell Brand went off.
The point where Bill Maher gets uncomfortable, we're making a lot of progress. When a number one guy that's pushing back on mainstream media is a former former fighter and, you know, actor, Fear Factor shows, and he's putting people in their place where they can't go around, you know, saying, hey, you better get vaccinated or else this. And all of a sudden people are saying, well, I kind of like what he's talking about. What is this about ivermectin? I think the progress is being made. Does that mean that's we're leaning towards anarchy? No, it just means we're making progress. Because if on 100 different issues, if we wrote on a piece of paper, an anarchy, a libertarian, a capitalist.
He said an anarchy. Yeah, Malice said everything before 1950 was privately funded. We had most innovations during that period. Competition breeds innovation. This is not news. If you have no incentive to do better because you're going to get the money for doing your job anyway, why bother? Why bother doing any better?
We may agree on 77 different things, or 78 different things, or 82 different things. And then you may disagree with you on 4 different things. You say, no.
Okay, why? Explain to me why we would have structure fires. Explain that to me. Because again, we have firefighters that exist today, right now, right? So why would the existence of those people not being changed at all? They still need to make a living, and people still have a demand for firefighters. Why would there be structure fires? So the government didn't invent rockets to go to space. They just gave them money to do it. Look at NASA compared to SpaceX. Who do you think is performing better? There you go. There you go. Society in the 50s is a tenth of our society currently. Yeah, that's because it was 70 years ago.
Stupid. Right. They were saying, no, Dave, give us like this. But you know what? There's a lot of things that we all want to see have progress happen. I think we're making it. Do we want to have a...
And you know what? On that point, Divine and Rod, look at the progress between 1950, January 1st, 1950, and today. And what is that, 73 years? Then look at the progress from whatever, 1877 or whatever. Look at the progress in that period. Which period had more progress? That's not the point. The point is, yeah, you're right. They take a lot of money from the government because the government has set up an infrastructure where people like that can get a lot of money. That's not the point. SpaceX does not get the same amount of money from the government that NASA does. If they did, imagine what they did.
A big government the way we do today? No. Do we want to see them printing money the way they're doing today? No. I think they're being exposed by both sides. Does that give credibility to the anarchy argument? I don't know about that.
I don't agree with most of what you just said, but let me break down a few.
Hey, we got Habitat Farm in the building. Welcome to the party. Glad to see ya. Habitat Farm says the world is far more complex than your perception of it, regardless of who you are. Agree with that. Regardless of your political persuasion, it's not the right approach for every situation. Anarchy, yeah, sometimes. Fair enough. I like that. Oh, it's Lee. Hey, yeah, I was just talking about earlier when it must have been weeks ago now when you asked what's more important in politics, feelings or policy. That's still been in my mind, bro. That's still been on my mind. Welcome to the party.
Few points where I disagree with. First of all, I don't think there's such a thing as big government. There's only government you approve of. Any government that is big enough to impose its will upon you will be regarded by you as a big government. And
Facts.
If a government is so small that the night watchman state where you could drown in a bathtub, then it's not in a position to impose any kind of weak law and order regardless.
Facts.
So there's no coherent argument from anarchism, number one. Second, I don't think it's at all accurate, and I'm friends with Joe, I've been on his show several times, to regard his amount of influence or how much he's trusted is in any way comparable to the New York Times or to someone who's a law professor at Yale. These are, to me, still night and day. I don't think at all there is a view of both sides, if you mean like Republican and Democrat or liberal or conservative, that they regard the state as a legitimate. There is no incentive and no move in Washington, let's just take from the conservative perspective, to shrink the size of government by $1. You had Trump and 2 years of Republican congressional majority. There wasn't even an attempt to abolish a single government agency, let alone to shrink the size of the government. So this idea that if you want to be kind of have a libertarian perspective and say people are realizing government's too big, even if people are realizing this, DeSantis didn't shrink the government at all. I think he grew it even faster than his predecessor. So in terms of 77 out of 100 things, if you and I both have the exact same vision of a house we buy, what we want it to look like, and you want to sell it and I want to move in, we do not have the same goal, even if we have the same vision.
Yeah, but in your world, it's your way or the highway, Michael. And that's very hard because the way you sell.
How is it his way or the highway? He specifically stated all he wants to do is be able to exist within I mean, he didn't say it this way, but he wants to exist within his own little anarchistic community. So, and he said it's not even that they have to be anarchists. He doesn't even care if they're anarchists. He just wants to live and let live. And we were just talking about there's a big difference between live and let live and people can do whatever the F they want. Live and let live involves or at least implies the idea that there's some social enforcement. Letting people do whatever the hell they want is way more like, oh, you can do any, the stuff that Monster was talking about, and I'm not going to say anything about it. That is two very different things. Hey, Divine Rod! What is good? What is good? Thank you so much. Taking that sponsor spot. Let's pull this down. Morty, look what we got for you. Say thank you to Divine and Rod for sponsoring the stream. Thank you. Let's get you in this banner.
Sell your ideas. Our conversation started off when I asked you and you said, well, my book is ranked number 3 on anarchism and
on Amazon.
On Amazon. You said, I'm not making progress. Great. All I'm saying is progress. I didn't say it's happening. I'm giving your point back to you. We're making progress. Joe is making progress. Joe is not New York Times. We all know how big New York Times is. It's massive. It's a behemoth. But we're making progress. Elon Musk buying Twitter. It's progress. All of these things are progress. We are making a lot of progress towards the concept of freedom of speech and people questioning things they didn't question before because we're all collectively getting smarter and saying, this shit just doesn't make sense.
Okay, I'm with him so far. We got Harley says you could do both. Have government and private services. Yeah, government as backup to cover the cover things that the market hasn't or is unable to adequately cover. I'm fine with that. Habitat Farm says, I bet the government is one of those things that you have no idea how important it is until it's not there. Sounds like that definitely could be the case, but I'm getting more and more convinced that maybe this is what they want us to think. Maybe this is exactly what they want us to think. I don't know. Nobody's saying get rid of the government. We still need them for, he is, but, well, I guess he's not even. We still need them for some things, but we don't need them for everything. We don't need them for most things. Monson says, yes, the only role of the government is to protect rights. Yes. Everything else we can privatize. Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get back into this.
We're not getting smarter, we're getting more informed. I'm going to be pedantic on it because that's important, because I don't think people are necessarily getting smarter, but we have more access to information that is crucial, and that's what
we're not getting smarter, we're getting more informed. Interesting distinction.
Brought down the Soviet Union. But again, I think you're kind of mixing up several things. You asked me earlier why, anarchism.
I'm not mixing up anything. I'm just telling you we're making progress. And just like you're saying, you're
again, look at the body language. It's like, bro, I'm telling you that you are misunderstanding what I am saying. You're conflating two of my ideas into one thing. He says, I'm not misunderstanding anything. And then you get this. Like, all right, bro, just go on. Go ahead, do your thing.
The argument of anarchy is making progress. I think collectively, more people are informed today, whatever definition you want to give it, informed or smarter. More people are informed today to realize this shit doesn't work. We're unifying. When a Bill Maher, what are we talking about? Like Russell Brand? Are you kidding me? Like when Bill Maher and Russell Brand and Joe Rogan, who endorsed Bernie Sanders a couple of years ago, when they're coming up and they're saying, here's where we are, nobody in a million years could have guessed this was going to happen. Okay,
sure.
The weirdest people are unifying today, which I believe is major progress. Well, go ahead.
So if you're saying that all of this progress is happening, why is it so out of the realm of possibility that this thing that Michael Malice is talking about, anarchy, that is wacky to you, could have a place? Doesn't that go against everything that you just said?
We were asking earlier why anarchism isn't more popular, right? And I was giving you examples of we're making progress on that issue. And one concrete objective, as opposed to my personal feelings, is the fact that the book hit number 3 on Amazon. So I agree with you that we're making progress in terms of both understanding the nature of the state and the power elite, and also more specifically in terms of promoting anarchism as an ideology. Point being, I'm not a utopian. Right. So even if I had, for example, a magic wand and marijuana.
But you are a bit of a utopian. But Michael, let me manage something with you. In a conversation.
Did you see it? Monster's talking about it. He's showing Michael why you need laws. If it wasn't for laws, people would walk all over the smaller person, just like he's doing to Malice. If you think that Malice does not have the capability to stand up for himself, no more super chats. I'm sorry, Momo. If you think that Michael Malice does not have the ability to turn the volume up and make his points, then you're misreading this entire conversation. That's why I'm pointing out the when he's turning his head down, there was a moment, I was going to say it, but it was very quick, where, you stick your tongue to the side of your mouth and That whole thing is showing like, all right, I'm holding my tongue. I'm going to... Point being, there is no law that PBD is the leader. There is a general consensus. And so because he is a guest, because Malice is a guest on the show, he is deferring to the host. Nobody's telling him to do that. He's taking his own personal responsibility and doing that to respect the show, to respect his image, so on and so forth. That's exactly Malice's point, is that that can work. And if Malice wanted to get, hyped, he definitely could. He's choosing to hold his tongue. So this is just not relevant. Howard says, when it comes to the military complex, that's where the discussion gets spicy. Do you trust the government or the market to control the military? I don't know. And I think it's a weird question because of how intermingled they are. We know about the military industrial complex, and they are very, there barely is any separation. So it's hard to answer because we don't know how these companies would act if they didn't have those connections. But at the end of the day, my instinct is always to say that the market would be better. All right, then explain it better.
That's 2 hours. I may jump in and interrupt.
That's fine.
If it makes you uncomfortable, it's going to happen 50 more times.
I understand.
If you interrupt me, I'm fully comfortable. You're not going to offend me. I'm a big boy, and I'm expecting you to be a big boy as well.
I'm a very little boy.
Perfect. That's totally fine. Okay. Yeah, totally fine.
And I should be in my bed.
Yeah, you should be in your bed, and you chose to be here.
I'm not a utopian,
Okay.
and I do not appreciate being called a utopian.
So that's exactly what I was talking about. This isn't a case of him getting beaten down on. It's not going the way that he likes it. And PBD is a strong personality. That doesn't mean that he is there's some redress that is incapable of being justified here. It's just a conversation. And the idea is that you don't need laws in order to have a conversation. And his point is that you can scale that up. You're free to disagree, but that's what he's saying. He says we do need laws, but I think the way we do law and order should be different. I definitely agree with that. Oh no, my button's not working again. Come on.
Because what I was about to say is, if all that happens is drugs become legalized, that's nowhere close to an anarchist society. I'm not going to say, fuck you, that win doesn't count. That's a huge win. If people aren't put in jail for illegitimate reasons, I will take that as a goal. I will accept it and celebrate it. The reason I wrote this book, The White Pill, was...
So he's basically there saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. We are making progress in this movement that you say doesn't work. If it doesn't work or it's not a good idea, then why is there progress being made? Just because it's not perfected yet doesn't mean that it is bad or wrong or anything like that. Come on.
About the fall of the Soviet Union. The people in Russia, Ukraine, Romania, they're not living in some utopia. Things just got significantly better for them. And that is important for those of us who fight for freedom. You take the wins you can get. And you don't say, oh, well, they still have this law or they still have that law. No, you go, look, things in our lifetime, in places that are not some weird country that you can't find the map, moved fundamentally, enormously, in a better direction, and they did it relatively peacefully and relatively easily. And that, to your point, which I agree with it, is something that is important for those of us to stay motivated who fight for freedom. So that,
Mance, I thought you were going to restate your point. You're moving to a different point now, saying you need laws in a general society. What prevents someone from kicking down your door and taking all of your stuff? The understanding that we all have guns because there is no government, there is no governmental structure there. So you either have guns or you have security. Think of anything else that is not already controlled by the government. We already do we already behave in a way. Like, think of this show right now. How often do I even have to put this up? Very, very, very rarely. Because we understand that based on the types of conversations that we have, based on the types of comments that I'll respond to, and the way that I'll respond to them, is that we're really trying to do something here. So if you're going to just come in and be an a-hole, then there doesn't need to be a law. You're just not going to get a lot of play from other people in the chat. You're not going to get a lot of attention from me, and then you'll stop. This is exactly how it works with dog training. You know, that one of the biggest things is, how do I stop my dog from barking? How do I stop my dog from jumping? How do I stop my dog from doing this, that, the other? Make it stop working. If your dog's jumping and biting and barking at you and all this, and every single time you give them all this attention, well, it's no wonder they're still doing it. So that's like you saying, well, I need the dog crate. If there's no crate, what prevents my dog from jumping on me? Training your dog, taking personal responsibility for what happens in your home. That's what. What stops somebody from actually kicking down your door? Nothing, except for the very, very strong social enforcement. That is not something that we do. And then if you kick in my door, my neighbors are going to be like, yo, we don't do that. Or my personal security is going to stop you at the door. You don't need laws for that. Given how stupid, horrible, and evil some people are, they do a decent job. But the fact is, people still kick people's doors down and take all their stuff. So it's obviously not a perfect system. Harley says, morals, possibility of death, public shame, and social isolation. The law doesn't prevent people from doing bad things. Yep. That was the person with the bigger army or security agency will take over. There is no one person. That's the point. If one person tries to take over, everybody else is bigger than any one person. You can't have one person that's bigger than all of the people. That's a illogical concept. Any one person, even the U.S. government, can't take on everybody that's a U.S. citizen. So one person or one person's security is going to be able to take on an entire neighborhood and their guns and their security? That doesn't make sense. Will there be scuffles? Will there be potentially more violence? Maybe. Probably not, but maybe for a little while. And then, because the incentives for doing bad things will be much lower, people will stop doing those things. Exactly. If the laws stopped people from doing bad things, then bad things wouldn't happen.
This is why I think the anarchism question in this context is a bit of a distraction. You don't have to believe in anarchism to still fight for freedom and to work with me and other people think like you and to take the wins when you have them.
Yeah. So what I like about, competition is if your ideas are great, you could attract good people. You'll attract money. People will come to you. If you don't, you're going to lose good people. Okay. At this table, his family's from Canada. Tom doesn't live in Canada. Okay. Right. You were born in Ukraine.
Yes.
You don't live in Ukraine.
Correct.
You're here.
Yes.
You live in Buffalo, New York.
Yes, right.
I was
Sunny Buffalo.
Sunny Buffalo. By the way, that's a joke. He's in Austin. And
Really? So you think the citizens of Cuba is comparable to the citizens and the armory of America? Come on, bro.
And
which is sunny.
Which is sunny, yes. I was born in Iran. Okay. I live in U.S. Adam's family's from Israel.
Oh, come on. Really? Struggle streaming. My button's not working. This thing's going down in flames. What's going on here? Come on. Come on. All right, we're at 104.46. We're going to do a Let's get rid of this one. Oh, Jesus. What's going on here? What's going on here? I don't know what's happening. I mean, it's loading.
I think the nature of the state and the
Okay.
power elite, and also more specifically in terms of promoting anarchism as an ideology. Point being, I'm not a utopian, right? So even if I had, for example, a magic wand and marijuana.
But you are a bit of a utopian. But Michael, let me manage something with you.
It's gonna, yeah. Just wait. We're good. Just play. Just do the thing that you're supposed to do. Come on. Oh man, that struggle streaming. All right, let's try this. Let's try to open a new window. New window. There we go. Oh, look, it's me. All right, so at least we're moving. There we go. Come on. Come on. We're moving quicker than we were before. Come on, don't do this to me. All right, we'll give it a second. I see what you mean, Monza, but
It's important to note that,
of course, I see what you mean, but the point that I'm making is that that's not a comparable situation. Like, yes, if you drop one person in a place where nobody else is prepared for what's about to happen, and they just strike, then yes, you'll end up with Cuba. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a country that is already very heavily armed, and a significant portion of those people are well trained, or at least trained to some extent. And if you're not, I mean, you can still help. And so it's just not the same scenario. So yes, you can have somebody who can take over one other entity. But at the level that would happen, you would have other entities of that same size that would band together so that they don't get taken over. That and then after a certain amount of time, people would realize, unless you really, unless there's some huge reason, like in the way that we have like corporate takeovers and stuff now, then doing some violent overtake of another entity is not the best way to go about things. And so then if you're the bigger army, then you could say, hey, here's our terms. We're bigger than you. Follow them or else. Then, depending on what the terms are, then you have other entities that you can go to be like, yo, this entity is bigger than me and they're trying to push me around. They're bigger than you too. They're going to come to you next. So let's all band together and make sure that we keep the peace. Castro did break many laws, by the way, but those laws didn't stop him. So how would laws have prevented that? There you go. There you go. We're literally 1 second behind, but they brought up, what it says about anarchy on ChatGPT.
Anarchy is not synonymous with chaos or lawlessness, as anarchists often propose alternative forms of social organization and dispute resolution.
Right.
How do you feel
you
about
like
that
what he
definition?
says?
Are you okay with that?
I am okay with that. I'm just going to make one more point.
Oh.
I don't need 100% of people to agree with me at all. I don't have an opinion on how Macy's should have their refund policy. I understand that this is Macy's.
they're not doing it right. They should shoot self-defense. Honestly. Michael, let's not go that far. I'm not going to go that far.
Point being, there's lots of issues. This is why I'm against democracy. There's lots of issues where most of us shouldn't have an opinion because it's not our business.
I have one simple question. That everything you're saying is great. You're saying sort of a low-level conversation. It works, but we live on Earth. We all have to live in a country.
Sure.
And we have to live by
which is
that
a recent
country's
development,
rules.
historical development.
That we live on Earth?
No, that everyone is a member of one country or another.
Okay, got it. But
Sure.
we are in modern times.
Sure.
So we're not going back to biblical times.
Listen.
So everything you're saying is great. It's amazing. Relationships, police, everything. I guess what country is closest to even coming close to implementing any of this anarcho types of philosophy? Is there any country that even comes close?
And I'll ask this question, but I'll strike country so that you don't pick on that.
Right.
Is there some place or some group or something on Earth that comes close?
Better question.
Not just comes close, it is practiced all the time whenever any people work together.
That wasn't a
voluntarily towards a common
question.
goal. So it's not a location. It's not a certain type of government. So it's not like you say, it's not like you're going to say, well, America has an anarchist government. That's not how it works. Whenever you have peace, freedom, and interrelationships with people on a voluntary basis, that is anarchism being put into practice. And where on Earth, whenever anyone uses cuisine, when everyone does mathematics, whenever people use music internationally, all these things, fashion, these are all examples of international, historic anarchist systems.
You're driving these guys insane. They want you to give them the country so they can move there. I don't know why
Trying to get
you're
the hell
not.
out of here, Michael, and you just want to fucking play
Just
games
name
with
the
my
damn
heart.
country.
Fine, Israel.
There
Israel.
you go. All right, let's go into
being
current events.
serious?
Let's go into current events. Let's go into current events. Tom, give us an update on what's going
So there you go. Drop. Oh, my button's working again. I didn't even realize. Drop a link in the content suggestions, and then we can talk about it.
on with Silicon Valley and Credit Suisse, because a bunch of stuff came out just yesterday.
And I do notice that you said I totally missed your point, and I asked you to restate it, and you didn't. And then Harley asked you a question, and also didn't answer that one. So Monzo, we're waiting on those two from you.
You saw their stock at the beginning. The Dow was down 600, and then it ended up a couple hundred down. What's going on with the markets right now?
Well, speaking of utopia, no, overnight, this is very interesting. This can be summed up in one chart. Do you have the chart that came from Apollo? So this is a very interesting chart that comes out assessing the balance sheet risk.
Oh yeah, this is another part that I wanted to skip because it's boring.
Of the bank.
117. Okay.
Anarchy from happening. And so what they said was,
The government usually does.
So what we skipped was basically just a whole bunch of stuff with banks, and they went back to Ukraine, and there was a lot of stuff that he just didn't have a lot to say on. That's all we really skipped. So Amanza says a bigger army would have stopped him from doing that. Okay, but that the question was about laws. Unless you're restating your earlier point, then I don't know. I still don't know what your point is. Harley says, I don't agree with the abolition of government, but there are some things we can change. For instance, we should have a republic, but we can have a better republic. Yeah. I mean, democracy, the democracy part of it is it's slippery because we do want everybody to have their voice heard. The problem, as Malice just brought up, is that not everybody's voice should be heard. There's a lot of people who just don't know what they're talking about and spew BS, and they don't need to be heard. Now, we don't want the government to stifle them, but they don't need to be heard. So mob rule is not exactly the best way to go about things when the mob doesn't even know what they're ruling.
We're going to protect the depositors so police don't run on the banks.
Yeah.
So it was like they took 25 billion out there to prevent $1 trillion. That was the play.
And then it just becomes what? A self-fulfilling prophecy where it's just like, no, this is happening. And then
I'm glad my money's in crypto.
yeah, that's worked out
100%.
well for the last year.
Not 100%, but yeah.
You can't be serious, Michael Malice.
What do you
You're
mean?
glad your money's in crypto.
I am right now. Of course I am.
Right now?
Yeah.
What about over the last year where it's gone down 70%?
I
HODL!
bought low, kept it, I hodled it, then it went down. It's still there. I'm not going to sell it when it goes down.
I will tell you.
A bigger army would have prevented him from doing that because they would have been able to enforce the laws better. So exactly. if the laws weren't as they were, then another entity, another army would have been able to develop. The fact that he had the and again, I'm far from an expert on Castro, but the fact that he has the resources that he did of that army is exactly the problem. And another great point is that he didn't last long. When he started making deals with Russia, the U.S. came in and took over. So a bigger army did stop him from doing that. And as we've established, there is no governing body over Cuba, Russia, and the United States. So everything that you're proposing is everything that we're already living. Everything that you're saying we need is already being stepped over. So how is it helping?
I will tell you, and I'm not a pro Bitcoin or an anti-Bitcoin guy. Like I'm not, during the
Not financial advice. Buy Bitcoin.
entire, hey, can you do a sponsorship for FTX? We've never done it because I'm not. That's not my world.
Sure.
So we've never taken a sponsorship from any crypto guys, and we've got a lot of requests. Kind of like how you say, I'm not educated enough on the Ukraine to give it. I'm not a crypto guy to say, hey, here's what we're doing with this. But
That was shifty because he gave him. That's part of what we skipped when we saw Michael Malice saying, "I don't really know much about it," but they gave a lot of pushback. Like, what do you mean? You're this anarchist guy. You're supposed to be supporting anarchism and spreading it, and you were born there and all this. And he's like, "Bro, I don't know. I don't know." So for him to bring that back, that's interesting.
I will tell you this: if I am a Bitcoin guy, your argument right now is getting stronger. Okay, that's why Bitcoin went up 20% in a day. Went from 20 to 24,000 the other day.
So if, before we go on to that, this is exactly the point. He was the president. That gives you so much that other people, there can't be somebody else who's like, no, I'm the president. So having an army is one thing, but having the status of being the army, being the president, is very, very, very different, or changes the scenario drastically. How many people are willing to fight against the government, the president, the army, as opposed to some guy who's fucking shit up?
This is a very good time for the pro-Bitcoin folks to be selling what they're selling. The only challenge they have right now is the following is, my concern's always been, we've had Michael Saylor on a few times, and we've had a bunch of these guys. My only concern's always been that these guys are going to want to regulate. So the whole CBDC, they come out there, try to regulate the crypto community, what that's going to look like. And they're going to use this crisis to say, what if this happens to crypto? What if this happens to this? They're going to figure out a way to regulate that. If they don't, I think Bitcoin's a good place to be if they don't get their hands on it. But again, we'll see what's going to happen there.
All the DeFi guys are out there saying, see, told you.
Yeah. No, by the way, exactly.
Huh?
They should say it. This is a time to say your argument. If gold pops, Peter Schiff should come out and say, I told you so. I told you so, right? It should be able to.
My big concern is that at some point, maybe you're right that they're going to have to be like, all right, we got to stop the contagion, bail it out, and then you have to get inflationary as a consequence. That's on top of the inflation that's already happened, and what that ends up screwing over is the poorest of the poor. So that is really my concern here.
We're on the same page there.
100%.
They're going to want to get their hands on it. So let's talk a little bit about reparations. San Francisco, I'm sure you're a big supporter of this.
So that's why I wanted to skip all that too. So I just wanted to come back in with the reparations thing.
So San Francisco, to consider $5 million reparation check for black citizens, and it's actually, they're getting pretty close to it.
$5 million. They're proposing $5 million for every single black American. What?
Stupid. Are considering a draft plan for reparation package that would pay $5 million lump sum payments to eligible black residents, in addition to eliminating personal debt and tax burdens and providing
addition, I didn't know that part. So not only do you get just a $5 million check, all the debt you have is gone. And you know what that means. You know where that money's coming from. Us.
Annual income of at least $97,000 for 250 years to an undermined number of black guys. I'm a little bit flabbergasted. Let me read that one more time. Tax burdens and providing guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years.
Yep. Look at it right here. Yeah. The city board supervisors will weigh in the draft plan, which recommends eliminating personal debt and tax burdens and doling out a guaranteed annual income of at least $97,000 per year per person for 250 years. This is where we're at with reparations? You come talk to me about tax breaks and stuff, and like, I'm with you. Handing out a $5 million check to each individual person and getting rid of their debt and giving them $100,000 a year for 250 years? Speechless.
The plan also proposes allowing black families to purchase homes in expensive cities for just $1. Critics have slammed the proposal as financially impossible, with one estimate suggesting it could cost the city roughly $50 billion, and another suggesting that each non-black family in the city would have to pay at least $600,000. However, proponents argue that $5 million figure is actually low when considering the harm caused to black community. The state of California is also considering its own reparations proposal that would cut $360,000 checks for every eligible black citizens.
That's crazy. So yeah, Harley's outlining here how much of the government, which is the entire point here, that Castro was a part of. So if anything, Mansa, this is direct argumentation against government, because he used the government, according to Harley, which I trust. He used the government, that infrastructure, that power, to do all of the shit that we didn't want, that the Cubans especially didn't want him to do. So your argument has to be that not only could he have done this without a government, but that it would have been worse. Because all things being equal, the government still sucks. So if Castro did everything Castro did, but there just was less government, that would be better than what we have now. So that is a direct takedown of anything that has relevance to do with this with Castro. Let's see. Castro was in Cuba before Castro. What? Castro was in Cuba before Castro? And after he took over as president, he seized every American asset an American had in Union. That's why the U.S. embargoed and forced him to do business with Russia. Oh, America was what? In what? What are you talking about? Castro used his army to take over Cuban government and control his country. Right. So if there wasn't the Cuban government, and there was just Cubans with no government, then Castro could use his army, but all the other Cubans could also have their own armies. And even if he had an army 1,000 times the size of any other army, he doesn't have 1,000 times the armies of all those people. The only reason you can take that much power is if there is a government structure. So this is the worst example that you could possibly use to talk about how we need laws and government. Because that's what happens with laws and government. It may happen without, but it certainly didn't stop anything.
So the state of California, can I point something out? So yesterday I was reading, and it's very interesting. When did California abolish slavery in California?
They never had slavery.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That was a trick question. And then I looked back at all the other states that actually had legalized slavery. Massachusetts, Connecticut. It was really shocking. California has never had slavery. So even going back into California history to say, well, at this point, we really feel the state, it was not acting and had done this and had these laws. No. So how does the state offer reparations for something that actually historically it never actually did?
See, you're thinking 2022. It's 2023, and it's not reparations for slavery. It's reparations for racism. So they're talking about California had like discrimination. What did they have? Those covenant
Oh, that wasn't a joke. I thought that was a joke.
clauses in a contract. Like if I sold you a house, well, Dianne Feinstein, Michael Huffington, when they ran against each other for Senate, I think it was in 94, it turned out they had a house that had a clause that says, I will never in perpetuity sell this house to an African-American, and people ignore them, but they're still in the books. So this is paying for all of that. And the point is, it's never going to end. And the point of reparations, right? Pat, you burn down my house, you give me the value of my house and some cost, suffering, then I have reparations, I'm restored back to zero. The point of reparations is once it's resolved, you move on. But does anyone seriously think that if this actually happens, that it's like, okay, racism is done and we're going to move on to society and people are going to stop complaining about racism in California? Of course not.
That is my number one argument against reparations. Not that people don't deserve some type of something. There's a lot of people who their family was just ravaged by the way our government worked. What I'm against is this idea that taking my money and your money, when you did nothing wrong, I did nothing wrong, my ancestors did nothing wrong, and then give it to people and expect that to just be like, as you just said, okay, racism's done. What? That is never going to happen. That is absolutely never going to happen. Har says Castro knew he couldn't take on the U.S., so he made an alliance with Russia to have nukes put in Cuba, causing the Cuban Missile Crisis, which led to the Cold War. Fair enough. Thank you.
I'm in favor of this because the faster California gets driven into the ground and the more of kind of a understanding that, government is just basically a shakedown system, the better it'll be for everyone.
But how does it work? Because it's San Francisco, so it's a city.
The two surrounding towns that also have 500 people.
Stupid. So it's not the state, right? So
they'll figure it out. Level. Oh, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They just tried to ban 3D printers in all of California.
What?
For what? Because the law says, I don't know if they passed it yet, but if any object is used primarily or largely to 3D print guns, it's going to be, they're trying to ban it in California.
Can you find that article?
Yeah, look up 3D printing guns.
There it is. It's right there. I just saw it. Go the fourth one. Yeah. California passes new that's 26. That's an older one. Yeah, if you can find a newer one.
It was just in the last couple of weeks.
It's pretty wild to be thinking about this $5 million. So you know what it makes me think about? When I was talking to Roland Martin, and Roland said, I grew up in this community, and I'm like, okay. And what happened? I left. Why'd you leave the community? Everybody left. I don't understand. If you really want to help the community, why are you leaving the community? Well, because everybody else left. So anyways, he'll respond to this on Twitter with some kind of a link and file. And I like it when he does that because it allows me to go and look up a few other things.
I thought we were going to get a resolution to that story. That's a good, I want to hear part 3.
But what's going to happen if they can buy expensive homes for $1? Okay. So you mean to tell me they can go buy expensive homes at $1, and they're going to get $5 million and 97 grand over how many years?
250?
250 years, man. If they're going to live 250 years, that's respect, right? If you got that kind of
but no, not necessarily. If inflation, like 5 years, 97,000 is going to be worth like a soda.
Yeah.
Fair.
But if you think about that, then here's a perfect case study for people that are going to say, well, I can't believe you. If they do this.
Yup. Welcome to my channel.
Stupid.
You're actually right. If they do this just to see what happens as a case study, it's a great case study for everybody else. Let's see what happens. I'm actually really curious what happens.
Oh, yeah.
Go for it. Do it. Give them the money. Let's move forward. Let's see what happens to San Francisco. Let's see if San Francisco becomes a better city. Let's see if it becomes more vibrant. Let's see if more business owners want to move to San Francisco. If it does, then guess what? We officially have a case study. If it doesn't, you also officially have a case study that it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah, 100% agreed. I forget what I was watching. I was watching something, and somebody made a comment about, oh, that causes cancer. They're like, this is California. Everything causes cancer. I guess it's true.
I think we maybe have some, I agree with that. And I think we have some mini case studies out there. When you take a look at mega lotto winners and what they do, they effectively allow their relatives to buy a house for $1 because they just give it to them. And when you take a look.
But when did I have a fit? I literally just answered your question. You asked a question and I gave you the answer. That's having a fit?
Stupid.
Look at also athletes of all diversities and all backgrounds. You take an athlete that's suddenly given this monstrous contract when they get drafted by the NBA and the NFL. Remember, hockey and baseball, you have this rookie contract that goes 5 years, as you know, Pat. But then you've got the sports where you just walk in the door and you've won the lotto, right? Because you're one of the top 3 kids coming out of college, and there you go. And then you buy a house for your mom, and you give a car to your brother, and you give house to your sister. Go take a look at the condition of those assets, and go take a look how they care for them.
I'm telling you,
we have little mini case studies that follow exactly what you're showing. People will not take care of it.
I want to see it though.
That reminds me of a story when I was in my first band. It was 8th grade, and I was playing, some local show, this thing where you had to pay $100. Or I think you had to pay something like $80 and you get 100 tickets, and you sell as many tickets as you can for whatever you want. And you make that money back. And then anybody who comes to the door, when they ask, who are you here to see? And if they say your name, then you get, something. I don't remember exactly what it was. Hey, we got Alex Pickus in the building. Welcome. Just tell a little story about a band I was in when I was a kid. The shit, I forgot where I was going. Hold on, let me just see where.
I want to follow exactly what you're showing. People will not take care of it.
So, the idea that people will not take care of things. We had, this little EP, 4-song EP that we would just give out to people. And then somebody from a bigger band was like, yo, stop. Don't give these out. When people get stuff for free, they don't care. Charge $1. Charge $1. Look how cute he is. Charge $1. Now, that person, just the act of having to go into their wallet and give you money, in their mind, now there's value in that. They gave away some of their money for that. And so that's exactly what he's talking about, is that, when somebody gets famous or wins the lottery and then buys a house or a car or whatever, the person who got that for free is not going to see that the same way as if they had earned it and bought it.
I want to see it though. I
want
to
to see it.
Yes or no?
America see it and say it. This thing work.
I want to see it.
We figured it out.
Let me actually
have unity in the house.
They say right here.
Wait, can I say some more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Chinese were enormously oppressed in California, so they're going to be next on this list, and they have more of a reason historically with California than the African Americans do.
So reparations for them as well.
Am I wrong?
What a noble request.
Does it not make more sense for them?
Sure.
There were all these laws.
That was my question. Is this
Wait, who did he say? I missed it.
Reparations for him?
And they have more of a reason historically with California than the African Americans do.
So reparations for them as well.
Am I wrong?
I missed it.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
want to see it.
We figured it out.
Let me actually.
We
put
have
something
unity
up.
in the house.
They say right here.
Wait, can I say some more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
The Chinese were enormously
Chinese.
oppressed in California, so they're going to be next on this list, and they have more of a reason historically with California than the African Americans do.
So
That's a good point too. You give it to African Americans, then who's next? Now everybody's going to be there with their hand out, waiting for their government handout.
reparations for them as well.
Am I wrong?
What a noble
Does
request.
it not make more sense for them?
Sure.
There were all these laws.
That was my question. Is the slippery slope effective here? Because right here it says.
Why don't you throw Iranians in there?
There you go. Where does
Who
this
used
end?
to live in California and go there for vacation, now live in Florida? I think we should figure something out there.
Where's your check?
Iranians, only Americans know about oppression. If you watch the corporate press, you and I, our families, we don't know about oppression. No one left the elevator when we stepped
Very
in.
healthy upbringing,
It was nice. Everyone had a party.
Peaceful.
Just clear your throat real loud and go for it.
Rosewater ice cream.
I mean, hey, I would move to I'm not half, but I'm a significant a portion Chinese. I would move to California to get a $5 million, all my debt taken care of, and almost $100K salary for 250 years. Be around a bunch of people I hate, but hey.
Well, it's a slippery slope effect. So it says it's going to cost the city roughly $50 billion. So let's say, you're a white guy, you're an Asian guy, you're a Latin guy, whatever, you're a Iranian guy, and you're like, yeah, all right, cool. I agree. Maybe this is something they should do. Let's, make right the sins of our forefathers. All right. So let's say you do agree with this. Okay, great.
Sure.
But by the way, part of this is each non-black family in the city would have to pay at least $600,000. So hold on. So
Each family, and if you, I'm me, so that's me, $600,000 for something me and my family had nothing to do with. That ain't happening. That ain't happening.
As a white guy, all right, maybe you can make the argument. All right, well, you're not black. Your forefathers were maybe the oppressors. All right, it's time for you to pay.
Yep, exactly.
All right, well, now the Mexicans got to pay, though. The Asians got to pay. The Native Americans got to pay. Like, where does it end? Like, how do you determine who ends up paying? So if it's only, if it's all non-black residents, so now we're all paying. So
what about mixed families? Do mixed families cancel each other out? What if you like, how far back does your ancestor have to be? Because if you are in a mixed family and your dad is mixed, like, where does it end? Where does it end?
my family just moved here 4 years ago or 40 years ago from Mexico. I have to pay for some. It's just like, where does this end?
Politics isn't about logic or reason. It's about power. And that is kind of central to anarchist thought. So what
government is not, what did he say? Not about what makes sense. It's about power. Let's hear that again.
Or 40 years ago from Mexico, I have to pay for some. It's just like, where does this end?
And Harley, it definitely should.
Politics isn't about logic or reason. It's about power.
Politics isn't about logic or reason. It is about power.
And that is kind of central to anarchist thought. So what you're saying makes logical sense. But again, this isn't even about reparations in the sense of reparations of making people whole. This is simply basically a cash grab and a way to kind of get a voting block in place in perpetuity, quite obviously.
But
Wow,
if you're going for a voting block, you already have the vote. This is as liberal cities it gets. San Francisco.
This also appeals to Karen because white liberal women love stuff. Am I wrong? Love stuff.
Let
like
me
this.
tell you,
Yeah. He said, "Oh, Karen." Yeah, I mean, that's another thing that, I mean, for a conversation for another day, but I got to figure out the way to frame this. But the fact that these far leftist issues that are getting pushed, specifically the trans issues and the race issues, are typically coming from older white women. It's not black people who are overwhelmingly fighting and saying, "Oh, we're so we can't do anything, so we need $5 million. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to be going to be able to live." Most trans people are not out there being the trans activists. You have your allies who are, of course, there are the trans activists, but most trans people are just people. It's the Karens.
Karen.
I'm going to tell you right now. I'm telling you right now, Adam, I want to see this happen.
Oh, yes.
I'm for it as well. I want to see it happen. And you know who else I want to see duplicate this? New York City.
This is
Oh, do it.
I want San Fran to do it,
$5
New York City to do
million
it, Chicago
a
to do
person.
it, LA to do it. Do it. Let's see what happens.
This is why I donated money to John Fetterman. I want to see, and he's my candidate for president. I want to see this happen. The faster the Senate becomes Arkham Asylum, the better it is for
You
everybody.
just want to see
That's
the
not
country
cool. By the way,
burn.
there's
I'm serious.
There's a part.
You're not allowed to ask questions, you racist.
How dare you? How dare you?
There we go.
Part of it that's funny, but there's a part of it that honestly, for me, we have a relative, and I'll tell you what, this guy was a very prominent figure on TV, okay? Very, in the Persian community. And at the tail end of his career, he had a stroke. And the family was okay with people coming and visiting him. And there's no way he would ever want people to come and see him in a condition like that. It was horrible, if you know what I'm talking about. And the son was not okay with it. It's like, this is not cool for this to be happening. I can't say anything. I'm a nobody in the family to say, hey, guys, what are you doing here?
Sure.
They have to make the decision.
Monty, you still here? We're still going to talk about this, but not if you left.
If something like that happened to you and I, and if my wife put me into public, I'd be waiting for her in heaven for her to show up and say, what were you thinking? Allow me to be in public. Fetterman's family and Democrats to just put him up front like that, to say, well, he's great, he's this, he's that, that's a form of abuse, what they did to that guy.
He could have quit at any time. You're removing agency from him. He has aphasia. He's not literally like Terry Schiavo, brain dead.
Yeah.
And this guy's entire life has been seeking political power. This is the monkey's paw, right? It's like you have a genie's wish. It's like, I wish I was senator. It's like, all right, but it's going to cost you. He's like, I don't care. And now I'm hoping for the day when some on the Senate floor, when his head just explodes and covers 99 other senators with brain parts, blood, and skull bits.
You would want to.
That's crazy. It's amazing how I can be listening to somebody talking saying all this. And literally he said, this is abuse. I'm like, yes, this is abuse. And the next sentence, saying this isn't a Terry Schiavo situation. Yeah, he's got aphasia, but he's there. This is all he's ever wanted. Well, hey, that's a damn good point. Guess I got to change my mind.
I want to see that.
Oh, desperately.
Well, you are an anarchist. There you go. You just
I'm an American.
Yeah.
Like every American worth his salt wants to see a senator's head, just like JFK, head explode out of nowhere.
you just took it to a whole different level. Your game just went to a whole different level. Okay, let's talk about something else. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about a little bit of a. I don't know if you heard of this guy. They both live in from this one state called Florida. One guy's name is Ron. The other one's Donald. I don't know if you're following this very closely.
Yes, I know. Yes.
And they're
Don
both
and Ron.
very competitive. Very competitive.
Who could they be talking about?
So CNN
The
poll.
most competitive. No one's ever been this
Yeah,
competitive.
not at all. Most competitive.
I don't say it. Other people do.
Okay. So CNN poll, Michael. So obviously these guys know what they're talking about. So CNN poll, most Republicans care more about picking a 2024 GOP nominee who agrees with them on issues than one who can beat Biden. Okay.
Yeah,
So
there
this
you
poll
go.
shows that only 30% of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents believe that the country's best days are still ahead of it. This represents a significant shift from 2019 when 77% of Republicans were optimistic. When asked about the 2024 GOP nomination, 59% of Republicans prioritize a candidate who agrees with their views on major issues over one who has strong chance of beating President Biden. The poll also shows that 38% of Republicans view increasing racial, ethnic, and national diversity as a threat, which is twice as high as 4 years ago. Additionally, 78% believe that society's values on sexual orientation and gender identity are changing for the worse, and 79% think that the government is trying to do too many things that should be left to individuals and businesses.
Yup.
I think the reasons people give for why they vote the way they do are almost never the actual reasons, right?
This guy just has so many good lines. Whether you agree with him or not, he is witty and he is sharp. You ask people the reasons why they voted the way they did, and they're almost never the actual reasons.
No one says I voted for the better looking person, I voted for the taller person, but they're going to have a rationalization after the fact that like, oh, I like him more for the issues or I like his career.
Kind of like the Kennedy thing you were talking about.
Right, exactly. So I think when people are asked what you're looking for, it's not necessarily what they're actually going to do in the voting booth. Number one. Number two is I don't think Trump has a very good shot. Pun intended, because as soon as they start talking about the Fauci stuff, especially with the base, as soon as you start talking about his staffing decisions, it's going to look pretty bad for him. And I also think that there is enough impetus on the Democratic side for him to be either kind of charged with some kind of crimes, because I think they're very.
You think so?
If I'm an attorney general and I have the possibility of prosecuting a former president, that's going to catapult me, a state attorney general, into some national fame and history books. So the
Again, how do you argue with that? That's a good point. That's a good point. There's just so much less baggage with DeSantis. And I think a lot of the issues that Trump had early on, or in his first term, I don't necessarily think that they are going to be the same issues. I don't think he is incapable of learning from the past. I think that, when you're in it, it's probably very difficult on the fly to know if you're doing the exact right thing, just because it's all happening right in front of your face. So with a few years, like, oh, I definitely should have fired Fauci, number one. I don't know if those are going to be the issues, but the other point that he's making about, there's just a lot there. There's a lot of there where DeSantis, he's not like completely clean, but they don't have the kind of dirt that they have on Trump. That's for sure.
incentives are very much there for Democratic Party operatives to push him as far as they can. Why wouldn't they?
Now, when you say you don't think he's got a shot, define that. Meaning
I
he
think
has a great shot of winning the Republican primary.
No, I don't think he has. I think
General election.
I don't think he has a good shot at the primary.
How can
Really?
you possibly say
I'll
that he
tell
does 60% in the CPAC?
He's going to tell you if you don't stop interrupting.
Stop interrupting me, Michael Malice.
CPAC is irrelevant, as you know, because if you last CPAC what it was at this point in 2016, I don't think Trump's name was even there, or maybe he was because he just spoke in number one. Number two is he's going to have an issue with fundraising because now he's become so radioactive that if I'm a big businessman and I'm giving him money, it's going to be a problem for me and my customers because all the press is going to be on top of it. There's going to be enormous amount of there's a space now if I am Facebook or or CNN or Fox for me to say no to his ads because now it's been established that this guy fomented insurrection. I don't believe that's true at all, but that is the argument. So it's easy for me as a corporation who's going to be almost always left of center to be like, oh, I can't take your money because you're not a patriot, so on and so forth. So
that's a decent point. That's a decent point that he's making. And if you were here the last time we checked, predictit.com, Remember, this is the site where you can, there's a whole dollar split amongst, whatever this is the question for this one, who will win the 2024 Republican presidential nomination. Like, there's also one for who will win the actual presidency, and like a whole bunch of different things. And there's a dollar. So it's, basically out of percentages, and people can, you can buy yes or no, and it's basically like stocks. So last time we checked, Donald Trump was up by about 20 points on DeSantis, but now they are 1 cent apart. And then remember, we were talking about some of these guys who, these were down at like 2 and 3 cents. And so we're talking about like, at that time, if you wanted to buy Nikki Haley for 4 cents and that goes up a few, you're definitely going to get some money there. But in terms of, who is really going to win the presidency, you got to look at the top two there. But I don't know, this is much more reliable, in my opinion, than any of the official polls, because this is real people. This isn't this is, real individuals parting with their money based on what they really think. I remember the night of the 2016 election, and as the coverage of that night, the specific election coverage itself had started, the New York Times website still had Hillary Clinton at a 97, let me say that again, 97% chance of winning. I would love to have known what this site had it as, but, Michael Malice is saying that, he has no chance, but right now there's only a 1 point spread. So, take that for what you will.
He has a lot more stacked against him now than he did even in 2016.
So let me go to story. And then you guys.
Real quick, Harley says, I was hoping Andrew Yang would have been given a chance back then. He was the only one who wanted to rethink the government. Yeah. But again, his idea of changing the government was just giving money to everybody, which kind of isn't really different than what ended up happening, right? And we saw how that played out. So I hear you, but I don't know if I can agree with that one.
Let's continue with this. So maybe there is an event that could take place that could help him out. Here's what it is. Donald Trump's Truth Social cut staff as his SPAC languishes. This is a Bloomberg story. Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company of Truth Social, has laid off about half a dozen people, including senior members of its ranks, such as the chief technology officer, which, by the way, that's in a technology company.
Yeah.
That's like number one above everybody else. William B.J. Lawson.
It's like you wake up in the morning and fire your own heart.
That's top right there. Yeah. The company
done.
The company that's actually a good joke, Tom. That's 2 in a row. Okay, so the company estimates it can fund operations through September at present spending levels. Trump media executives were once
Monts, are you still here?
Optimistic about the advertising revenue Truth Social could generate, but the reality of launching an advertising business has proved more complicated. Truth Social monthly web and desktop visits reached a high of 11.5 million in visitors in August 2022, but I've seen a decline. Holy moly. This is a real number, to 5.7 million in February. So 11.5 million to 5.7 is a little over 50%, 51%. So here's what I think, and I want to get your thoughts, and you guys can talk about this. This could help him out. Why? Here's why. How long has he been free to post on Facebook, Twitter? For a while. Instagram, right? But he hasn't.
I think it's about a year or so, and that has to do with his deals with Truth Social, because obviously nobody's going to go on Truth Social if Donald Trump isn't even on Truth Social.
Okay, why? He's trying to drive value to Truth Social, SPAC, money, all these people, your friends, they put up money. Here's 5 million, here's 10 million, here's 50 million, whatever the number is, right? You're raising it. SPAC is a very, very risky thing, and it's probably the worst time ever that they had a SPAC. Possibly the worst time ever when they did the SPAC, at the tail end of a peak of SPACs, when all these guys were doing SPACs. We almost did a SPAC down for $400 million. You remember that? Last minute, we had a meeting. We decided we're not doing it. By the way, we were like all the way in to decision on a Zoom. Nope, we're moving on. We didn't do it. Very
Last point for those of you listening.
Yeah.
It was a profitable company that had been profitable for many years.
Yeah, our
so
EBITDA was a solid EBITDA.
Yeah, we weren't trying to go out and be a public company just because we were a profitable company.
And we wanted to go out.
And even we decided no.
Everybody we called, they said, if you would have done it 5 years ago, yes, this is the worst time to do a SPAC. So if Truth goes under, now he's not fully committed to post the stuff on Truth, so he's going to be active on what? Twitter, Facebook. So maybe Truth Social going out of business could actually help his campaign.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, because if he like, he has to find a way to do both. Because if Truth Social fails, then that's just more fodder for the Democrats to fire at him. Oh, he couldn't even, social media, it's the easiest thing in the world. He couldn't even do that. Whether that's true or not, that's, just the story that's going to be spun. But if he doesn't get back on the major platforms, then he's just not going to have the reach. Now, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I would imagine that we would see a lot of his Truth Social posts on other social media. But I'm questioning why we haven't seen that already since he has announced that he's running. I mean, people knew that he was running, but it hadn't been announced. And since it's announced, we haven't seen the type of coverage of Trump that we had for the 2016 election. Now, it's still only March, but that's going to be, I think, a big linchpin in his campaign, whether he can get to the masses without having True Social fail. He says, Yang was a businessman just like Trump, but Trump was more popular. Plus, Yang was running as a third party. No, he wasn't. He was running as a Democrat. Or was that 2016? I guess that was 2016. He definitely ran as a Democrat in 2016 because I was all about them Democratic debates. How good that did me, right?
I agree completely, because the reason people like Trump and what I like the most about
50-50 on
him is because
Monza,
both his foes and his friends every morning would wake up and be like, what is this asshole tweeting about now? Right? Like I could, the fact that when you,
the amount of shit he talks, and then one thing that I say that he doesn't like, and I didn't have a fit. He asked a question and I answered the question because it was a silly and very easy question. Okay, if I was to form an army and had 1,000 men in it and went to a town and they only had an army of 500, what would be stopping me from taking an army and taking my army and taking over that town? And I simply said, the two surrounding towns that also have 500. Now you have 1,000 against 1,500. How is that having a fit?
had the Democrats going to a military base overseas and he pulled their permission slips and they had to circle the bus around and they kind of get off the bus. That was the funniest shit ever. So him on Twitter was what got him the presidency. It was integral to him getting the nomination and getting the presidency. And it would behoove his campaign to have him back on it, despite all the people who were like, take his phone away from him. That said, he hasn't been on Fox in months. The conservative media establishment has turned their backs on him.
I think, and that's absolutely on purpose. They are doing anything they can, just like in 2016, they're doing anything they can to not have to be like, yeah, we like Trump. Because that's just unpopular with everybody except those who like Trump. And so if you can say, well, yeah, Trump is, but Ron DeSantis, well, that's a much better view from your opponents than at this point trying to drive Trump into the narrative. So that makes sense.
He's not like fresh like he was in 2015 where no one's seen anything like him before. I think it's going to be very hard for him to regain that fire that he had now almost a decade ago.
I can't believe you guys think this is...
Nope. I don't think it is at all going to be hard for him to reignite that fire. He absolutely will have to reignite it. He absolutely will have to do that. But that is not going to be his problem. Oh, I got him mixed up. I was wrong. Clip it. Don't let anybody ever tell you I can't say that I'm wrong.
This actually would be a good look for him. I hear what you're coming from.
I didn't hear the beginning of that.
2015 where no one's seen anything like him before. I think it's going to be very hard for him to regain that fire that he had now almost a decade ago.
I can't believe you guys think this is actually would be a good look for him. I hear what you're coming from, because if you want to win a national election, you're going to want to be on all the major social media platforms. You're going to want to be on Twitter. You're going to be on
you
Facebook.
Have to.
National megaphone.
But if you're coming into the race with a failed business, that's just a bad look. Especially if you're the guy who I win like nobody else wins. Okay.
You have to, but there's a reason. There's a reason he's not using it right now because he's doubling down on his SPAC, Truth Social. I would argue that the worst thing to ever happen to Donald Trump on a social media situation is Elon Musk taking over Twitter. okay? Because Elon Musk has basically enabled Twitter to be a free speech platform. That was the whole point of Truth Social. So the whole marketing agenda was like, this is a free speech platform. Come join us. This is where it is. All it has turned out to be is a right-wing echo chamber.
I don't disagree that it has turned into a right-wing echo chamber, but I don't think it was ever going to be anything but that. I think the fact that like there's just not enough pull, even with Trump supporters. People don't care enough about like what any one person is saying enough to go and download a whole new thing and you know have to have a new thing to check. Like it's just people aren't going to do it. People aren't going to do it. He's now part of the Freedom Party. Good luck with that, pal. That sounds cheesy. That sounds cheesy. At least America First sounds tough, but whatever.
I don't know any moderate or even liberal that's even going close.
Or even conservative, who's just not MAGA.
Look at Tom just pointed it himself. He's like, I don't go there. So the last thing that Donald Trump's got, some may argue that he's got thin skin. Some may argue in order to make it to where he's at, he has to have thick skin. We don't know what exact type of skin he has.
It's orange.
It's orange. We know that. But the last thing that he wants to be labeled is a loser. Okay? And you're about to say that he is a loser. Well, I would argue, he's won a bunch more than he's lost, but lately he's been losing. But I don't think this is a good look for his brand. So what's his brand? Whether it's Trump hotels, Trump casinos, Trump steaks, Trump's waters, a lot of these businesses have failed. So now you're telling me the one business, Michael, the one business you've been working on since you lost the election, Truth Social, is now going to fail?
Exactly.
Tell me how that empowers him to be the president of the United States again. Well, I don't see it.
I don't think Truth Central, as he called it, Truth Central, is going to be central to his brand or his identity. I think he's riding on, I was the former president, I'm the one who could take on Biden, I had results in the past, I'm going to have results in the future. What MAGA people don't appreciate is that his last year in the White House, he took L after L after L after L. It was an entire year of L's. It wasn't, and the fact that even if you regard the election as having been stolen, the fact that they were able to drag this carcass across the finish line, if he couldn't stop that in 2020 with the power of the White House behind him, how is he going to stop that in 2024 with the power of the White House against him? Now you could argue that
if he couldn't do it with the power of the White House behind him, how is he going to do it with the White House against him?
Whoever they put up, they're going to take it. He doesn't have a chance. Okay, I can wrap my head around that argument, but that's not a good argument for Trump specifically, as opposed to someone who's won.
But one could also argue without COVID, Trump would have beat Biden. Pretty fair.
But I think absolutely. There is no way Biden would have won without Rona.
A lot of these MAGA people think that no matter what happened, it would have been stolen from him.
Yeah, well, we've seen what's happened with the Fox lawsuit with Dominion. And
I'm saying if you're trying to talk to some supporters, that's where they are.
But
right?
So I guess as an odds perspective, I love getting the odds. Like this wouldn't 100% hurt him. It wouldn't 100% enable him. Like, give me the odds of why you think this would be good versus bad. I think this would be a bad look for his Truth Social SPAC to fail.
I think you were talking about two different things. You're talking about it would be an L on his business legacy and bother his ego. I think Pat was talking about something else.
Yeah.
I think both of you, Michael, respectfully, are very naive. And you have to accept it. Very nice.
And utopian.
Here's why. Let me explain to you why.
Here we go.
Okay, here's why. So let's just say if we're best friends and we've known each other from high school, okay? We always hung out, we got along, we've been tight forever, we have each other's back. Okay.
You my boy, Blue.
You go through your first divorce after being married for 7 years. And we get the call. Hey guys, you guys got a minute? Yeah, what's up? I got to talk to you guys. What's that? Mary and I going through a divorce. Oh shit, sorry.
40 grand a month?
Yeah. So kids, this, that. No, man, it's just reached a point. It's just not going to work out. We're going through a divorce. Trust me, I'm kind of dealing with it. You guys mind if we meet up somewhere tonight? Yeah, no problem. We'll go meet up. Okay. So we feel bad for you. 6 months later, you meet Jackie. And you're, hey, it's Jackie. Oh, it's good to meet you, Jackie. Everything good? Yeah. It's tough for about 3 months, but Jackie and I met, on Bumble. And, it was phenomenal. I'm like, oh, we're happy for you, man. Everything good, Michael? Yeah.
One sentence. My friend Jackie is currently in the hospital, and she's so caring. She called the cops on the nurses 2 days ago. So shout out to Jackie.
You're joking.
No, I'm not.
You want me to change your name?
No,
it's funny.
It's funny. I love her. She's a great woman.
Jackie. So you're dating Jackie, and you're happy. And then all of a sudden, we come to your second wedding.
Okay.
And you're up there, you're doing what you're doing. Me, Tom, and Adam walk to the side, and we're having a drink, and we say, okay.
Does anybody have any idea where this is going? I have no idea.
Guys, over under. What are the chances of this one working out? Adam says, I don't know, bro. I think it's 10%. Tom says, no, this one's going to work out. He loves her. And 80%. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm kind of like at 30% mark. Okay, go. All right, sounds good. This one, 9 months later, give us a call. And they say, dude, this chick's crazy. She's a Karen. She's this. She's in a hospital. This is not going to work out, right? So what are you doing? I'm getting a divorce ASAP. It's just not going to work out. Great, no problem. The third time you call us for the wedding, our schedule's probably busy. Okay, what's the point here? Like, he's getting married again. Leave it alone. It's
I'm not
fine.
inviting you. You never believed in me. We were friends since high school, and you're taking bets at my wedding. Fuck you.
Oh, my
Go back to your monitor. That shit. Fuck out of here.
Dude, that was high
Jackie was a good woman.
That was high school,
You know,
dude. Now you go through women every time the clocks change.
Okay,
Come on.
so for those of you guys that are upset saying, Pat, get to the point. Here's the point. The point is, how many stories are there with stakes, with this, with that? No one gives a shit about Truth Social going out of business. Nobody does. This is not the first divorce. Let me make my point, and please don't interrupt. Okay, this is not the first, second, or third. I think statistically, it'll take us a week, 2 weeks to get over it. They'll take shots. But what are you going to say? He's filed this many bankruptcies, never worked. He's done that, never worked. This guy's
That's true. 11 bankruptcies. That didn't stop him.
going to be able to get more eyeballs if this thing goes out of business. He goes on Twitter. His first tweet, Michael, if it's the right tweet, it'll be the most liked tweet of all time, ever. And he can create momentum if he gets back there. And quite frankly, guess what? Elon Musk is not in the business of running nonprofits. Okay.
That is brilliant. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, take 2 weeks. I think I want to make sure I heard the right thing.
But what are you going to say? He's filed this many bankruptcies, never worked. He's done that, never worked. This guy's going to be able to get more eyeballs if this thing goes out of business. He goes
That part. The eyeballs it's going to get. This is something I did not think of. All the Democrats in the world. Pat's right. All the Democrats in the world and be like, haha, what a loser, bankruptcy this time, and now Truth Social failed with Trump University. Oh, you already did that. Ha, ha, ha. All of that stuff was already there. And like I just said, a lot of Trump supporters don't even use Truth Social. So they're not going to care. But they will want to come to the defense of Trump. I've been convinced. I think Truth Social going out of business is probably the best thing for Donald Trump. And then, I mean, Pat's also right about, his first tweet. But it almost doesn't even matter at that point. Interesting.
goes on Twitter. His first tweet, Michael, if it's the right tweet, it'll be the most liked tweet of all time, ever. And he can create momentum if he gets back there. And quite frankly, guess what? Elon Musk is not in the business of running nonprofits. Okay.
Sure.
And he joked the other day saying, I'm officially running the biggest nonprofit of all time because they're not making any money. The revenues are down some ludicrous, crazy number that's down. He's going to sit there and say, dude, we kind of need the profits. We'll take memberships from Republicans, from MAGA, from whoever it is, even from anarchists. Come and buy membership. We don't care.
Even by anarchists.
I think Truth Social going out of business is going to help his campaign. Go ahead.
You're saying too.
I've just been convinced. You can run it back. I just told you that I think for him to lose his business, the only thing that Adam was talking about, the only thing that he's been working on since he's been in office fails. That cannot possibly be good for him. But I've been convinced.
Two contradictory things.
Yeah.
So it will help his campaign in the long term, but in the short term, it is going to be a problem, and this is going to be an albatross around his neck.
Yeah.
Sure, but not enough of a problem to make it not an overall benefit.
And it's different from the bankruptcies in the past. No one cares about Trump stakes that happened in the 80s or 90s, whoever it was. Point is, this was their mothership. This is where they went to, and now it closed down. They get kicked out of their house. They're not going to like it because people make friends on social media. You know what I mean?
It's obviously not ideal. What would have been ideal was not to get banned and not to start Truth Social in the first place. But that ship has sailed. But that's not the point.
It's going to be, and the thing is, yes, it doesn't really matter because it's not that big of a deal, but they're going to make it matter.
Exactly.
Because even Fox is going to 24/7 be like, look, another disaster from Trump.
Correct.
Right. But what Pat's point is that they already did that. And he already won. And there's no chance that without Rona, that he wouldn't have won again.
BDS is going to be everywhere.
And I think one thing you got to, everything comes down to sort of the news cycle. If this does fail, it'd be better to fail sooner rather than later.
And I think his spin is going to make it worse because he's not going to say, all right, we tried our best and it didn't work out. He's going to have some cockamamie excuse. And that's what they're going to.
The left-leaning Democrats didn't want this to happen. They wanted to see me fail.
By the way, the only recommendation I would give is
that's the kind of thing. Blaming the Democrats is something that, in 2020, I definitely would have been like, yeah, that's probably, you know, where he's going to mess this up. But those are the types of things that I think he has a better understanding. He's always had an understanding of how to reach the people. It's just that he's reached the people as the perspective or the position of a celebrity, of a just like a money guy in general, not as a politician. And he got a lot better over the 4 years. And then the speech that he made recently, I don't know, weeks, I don't know, but he made like a legit speech. And especially myself, one of the biggest things originally that got me down this never Trump road was the not being presidential. And that speech was very presidential, especially compared to Trump Persia. It absolutely was. Now, I mean, I've heard some press, you know, some, I don't know if you call them speeches, but I've heard I've heard Ron DeSantis talk in press conferences and stuff, but I've never heard him give a speech like that. So that would really be the information that I need to fill out this. That's a gap in knowledge there, but I've been convinced.
Give the strategists that are working closely with President Trump to have him realize there's a different approach you have to take as the favorite than as the what do you call it, as the underdog. He's using the same strategy as an underdog in 2015. It's not going to work. You have to take a very different approach as a favorite because he's coming across as a bully to DeSantis right now. And it's not attractive.
Yeah, but this goes back to what I always say.
I don't know. With anybody else, yes, but with DeSantis, it's known. It's known that it's going to be those two. So I say that he could go as hard as he wants on DeSantis. Anybody else, I would ease off because, like I said, he's not the underdog anymore. He's the favorite.
He's not gonna change. Like everything he's done. When we've ever seen him change?
Here's what happens.
Should he change? Should he take some counsel? Of course.
We could solve this
But
problem
he's
in one
not.
sentence.
Michael, you're
solve it.
All he has to do is sell Truth Social to Kanye West, and the problem is solved.
Yeah, because everything he's done with Kanye West has worked out really well.
Yeah, exactly.
All his arrangements with Kanye have worked out well for him.
Let's put the next one.
For us.
This one is specifically for you, and I need your insight.
Yes, sir. You shall have it.
On this one.
So I took it in my notes that this will be the end of the show when he's asking for opinions. We'll go for a little longer. I don't remember exactly what it was. Maybe I'll be more in a mood to check it out. But this is probably where we're going to start winding it down. If you have not done so already, please make sure you have joined Discord for the after party. I wanted to have the discussion with Mansa about what he's talking about here, which I obviously can't talk about here, but he rage quit and had a temper tantrum. And, maybe we'll see him again eventually when he's done crying. But yes, this is my channel, and I will say what I like. And if you don't like it, then you can leave. But for those of you who are here, I very much appreciate you. Harley says the last speech I saw of him being DeSantis was in Florida, and he was still ranting about what he did during Rona. We already are you talking about Trump or DeSantis? I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Even though I should be in bed. Yes, I will.
Here we go. By the way, Rob, can we send? What kind of mattress do you have?
I have a sponsor that's a mattress company. And
so you got to be committed to them.
I am. I like it.
Okay, all right.
But I need a twin. A new twin.
Do you really?
Yeah, I have a guest room.
Do you
need a twin?
I'm trying to make it haunted.
No joke. So you want like you got a girl? You don't know. You got to stay.
It's a guest room. What do you mean with the girl? The girl's not in the guest
He
room.
just said he's got twins.
When you're done, you say go in the guest room.
No. I guess I go in the Uber.
I'm thinking like you're an anarchist. Like the wife sleeps in a different room. You're not thinking like
you don't bring the girl over the house if you're married. Are you crazy?
So she's talking about DeSantis. Last speech I saw him was in Florida. Still going on about Rona. I want to know what he's going to do in the future. I mean, that's why I was confused, because that's exactly how Trump's speech was as well. And there was vagaries about what's going to happen, what he wants to do. And for the first time, I did hear him start kind of alluding to the future as opposed to talking about the past. But I think they're both kind of in that same spot. But again, it is early. Nikki Haley's not going to win, so it's between the two of them. So I think they're kind of holding back. and just kind of riding the wave that they're the two front runners until somebody else does something that's going to threaten that. Then I think the best political strategy is to just sit and wait. As we saw with Joe Biden, that can be all you need to do. That can be all you need to do.
That's the mistress comment you made at the end. I got you. I'm following you. I'm following you closely. Michael, my apologies.
Jackie's a big fan of the show.
My apologies.
This is why after 9 months it's over because of you, Pat.
I apologize. Please receive it.
She's blowing up my phone right now.
All right, here we go.
She's
Here we
waiting
go.
for the cops to show
I
up.
need
Our resident fact checker doing what she does.
your insight on this one, Mr. Michael Malice.
Yes,
Republicans knock Ron DeSantis after Florida governor says helping Ukraine is not a vital U.S. interest. Several high-profile Republicans, including Senator Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, Liz Cheney, and Lindsey Graham, are pushing back against Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' argument that helping Ukraine fend off Russia's invading forces isn't a vital international interest.
Well, that just pushed me closer to Ron DeSantis.
In a questionnaire sent by Fox News host Tucker Carlson, DeSantis declared that becoming further entangled, that's a Jada Pinkett word,
Yeah, that's
in
a
a
reference.
territorial dispute between Ukraine and Russia is not of vital interest to the U.S. and criticized the Biden administration for funding Ukraine. Rubio argued that Russia's end goal is to overthrow the Ukrainian government and rule the country, and
Who cares? Nobody cares.
he said the war should not be compared to other conflicts or territorial disputes settled with treaties or peace agreements. Haley accused DeSantis of copying former President Donald Trump's stance on Ukraine, and Cheney accused DeSantis of weakness and forgetting the lessons of Ronald Reagan. Graham tweeted that allowing Russia to succeed in conquering Ukraine invites aggression by China and Taiwan. Thoughts?
I have a hashtag.
It only invites aggression by China and Taiwan at this point after we've already been involved. Ukraine is not a NATO country. As far as I understand, which may not be very far, but that could have been a regional conflict that happened to include a very, very large country. Because we got involved, now there's a reason for China and Taiwan to be involved in a way that affects us. Again, that could be completely wrong, but that's my understanding of the situation.
Called Limbs for Liz, where people who lost their arms and legs in military service can send prosthetics to Liz Cheney's house because there's not enough corpses and dismembered people for her taste. She needs a second house. She needs a second condo. This woman is pure evil. And frankly, my understanding is that she was the model for Miss Piggy. If you put a picture of them side by side, you can't see the difference. I think what DeSantis is doing is he's running for the nomination, and I don't think Nikki Haley, Liz Cheney, and Lindsey Graham between them, see, this is identical. If you have any, am I wrong?
Please show it. Please show it.
Michael.
It's why? Because it's haram.
Haram! Haram!
I don't think between the three.
Bro! I didn't think it would be that close. Oh, man.
Of them, they have any kind of clout with the Republican base. I think the Republican base has become increasingly radicalized.
Mhm.
And I think a year from now,
And when he says radicalized, I think that is translation, at least the way that I understand it, is not radicalized in, because remember, we're talking with an anarchist. So radicalized, we have to look at the context. It seems like he is talking about people who just care. People who just care. People who are actually in the fight. People who are paying attention. People who are watching shows like this, supporting shows like this, and understanding what is really going on. And I guess that has become what is called radicalized. But I don't think that's exactly what he means.
when you're in New Hampshire and Iowa, to still be supporting pumping more money to Ukraine is going to be extremely unpopular with the Republican base, whether that's a good thing or not.
Adam.
Yeah, I think what we're getting is a little insight into Ron DeSantis's mindset.
Yeah.
If he were to run on for presidency, which we all expect him to do, it could be as early as May. I think is when after the Florida government situation kind of dissipates. But
Guys, I need a huge favor. It'll take you 2 seconds. Just take the URL, hit that share button. Get this out everywhere. I love you partying with you guys, but we got to get this popping. It just takes 2 seconds. Just do it and we'll be on fire.
he's sort of cueing to the base, hey, this is where I stand on this. And he's drawing a strong delineation between what Biden stands for, which is obviously doubling down on Ukraine. He sent
tripling, quadrupling, yeah.
all that. He sent every one of, who was the latest person that he sent over to Ukraine? It was, he sent Janet Yellen, and then he sent Merrick Garland, I believe, to Ukraine. Basically, he's doubling down on Ukraine. He's basically saying this is the difference between me and Joe Biden. And if that is who ends up running against, if he does get the nomination, he's sort of giving a heads up. This is where I stand.
And here's
All right, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm getting a little bored with this stuff. You know, we did a stream on Ukraine and all that stuff, and like I said, I'm just not that into the knowledgeable about that stuff. So they're just gonna be talking. It's gonna go over my head. All of that stuff. So Harley says the issue in Ukraine isn't cut and dry. Exactly, the conflict goes back years. There's also parts the media doesn't show, as always. Which is exactly why I don't necessarily want to get into it. And I just want to say thank you to you guys, especially to Divine and Rod for sponsoring the stream, and a special thanks to anybody who donated, but to all of you. I really, really, really do appreciate the time that you spend here. Even if we get a little heated, we're here for a purpose. So don't be like Mansa and go and cry. Make your arguments, and if they are good, as you have seen, I will change my mind. And if I've done something wrong, I will apologize. But I'm not here to just, tell you whatever you want to hear. Unfortunately, because I have my principles, there's going to be a lot that you may not agree with, but if I think it, I'm going to say it. If I believe it, I'm going to say it. I hope that is the allure of this channel, is that I'm not here to just pander to you. I'm not here to just give you what you want to hear. I'm here to give you what I think is what you and everybody else needs. And if you're with that, then that goal should be higher than a silly disagreement. But if that's too much for you, then I completely understand. This, this channel is not going to be for everybody. Some people can't handle it. Hey, we got Ezekiel in the building coming in. Never a party without Ezekiel. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just closing up, but glad to see you. Says anarchy is the only way. And anarchy isn't bad. Politicians lie about what anarchy is. Violence and riots are not anarchy. Anarchy is peaceful. Love that. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful comment to end on. Thank you so much for coming through, Ezekiel. And this pretty much summarizes everything that we talked about. But we are not done, guys. After party starts as soon as this finishes. The link is right there. Please, please, come on. It is free. Guys, it is free, but it is not going to stay free if you don't join. If you join now, it's going to be free forever. But once we hit a certain number, I already got that number locked away. I'm not going to tell you. I'm cutting it off. I'm cutting it off. It's going to be so poppin' that people are literally going to want to give me money to hang out with you. So join now so that more people want to come and make it a poppin' community. It's free. It's free. I'm heading over there right now. So I want to thank you guys again so much for hanging out. I really, really, really do appreciate every moment that you spend with me. I appreciate you guys, being part of the conversation, all of that. The super chats, I cannot express how much I appreciate them. They do definitely go directly to all of this. My only goal is to make this my full-time job. And I can do way better. I can spend way more time researching things and collecting different types of things instead of just having one set video that there's all of that is hinged upon me being able to quit my job. That's what it is. So if you can't donate money, that's totally fine. Being here is huge. Liking the video is huge. Sharing the video is huge. All of these things are huge. So if you like what I'm doing and you want it to get better, then I need your help. I cannot do it alone. To those of you who have been supporting, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Ezekiel says, I wish more people knew the truth about anarchy. There would be tons of anarchists. Plus, it isn't a political party. Yep, that's exactly what Michael Malice was saying. And if more people were here, they would have known. But we topped out at 6 people at one time. I know it's a Friday, but we got to do better than that. Not just for me. I'm not just doing this for me. Yes, I need to pay my bills because that's the world we live in. But I am on a mission to fix political discourse in this country single-handedly. And if you give me the platform, I will be able to do it. I just can't do it alone. That's it, guys. Together we will do something huge. We're right there. We're right there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this party. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it. Once again, I'm your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, which should be in Discord in about 30 seconds, I am out of here. Peace.